If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we're back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend, Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete Chambers. Good to see you, Doc.
It's good to see you. You know, you're giving me flashbacks looking at that wall behind us on the screen. It's like I've spent hours and hours driving. When you get to the Big Bend and you're way down out in the middle of nowhere, just driving by that wall.
No kidding.
Hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. Well, the green, when we put that picture together, was supposed to represent like a toxic environment. Don't ask me why. That's just what the software suggested. But when I looked at it, I thought to myself, it was like looking through early generation of NVGs, kind of just different.
Kind of has that look. Yeah.
But I see S2's joined us as well, our in-house Intel subject matter expert. Good to see you, S2, or good to see your avatar.
Good to see you, Chris. How you doing, Doc?
Happy to be alive. How are you, sir?
I'm about the same way right now.
It seems to be the theme of the day, actually. Doc and I had a short conversation before we went live. So anyway, we're going to jump right in. Doc's got a whole bunch of updates for us, and we're going to start with a border update. Take it away, Doc.
Roger that. Well, you know, it's yeah, I used to talk about optics and reality of what was happening while we were on Operation Lone Star. I was a Texas National Guardsman, finished out my career down there for the last few years, 2016 on. And we, you know, as the state took over the mission and the Title 10, the active duty pulled off during the Biden administration, it was up to the state. So they increased the troops from 600 to about 10,000 at its height. And even during that height of influx of troops, we really saw just overwhelming numbers coming across the border. Of course, that's, you know, there's multiple factors there, but it was, you know, the Title 42 was pulled, Remain in Mexico policy, that's all gone. You got the transfer migration pull draw from the osmotic pressure, as Michael Yon calls it. I spoke to him just a little while ago. He's down there in Panama. So you got all these things that are pushing it and pulling it, but truly the answer was not numbers of troops looking through binoculars on the border. The answer was enforcing laws. And as we see now, we're enforcing laws, and I get the numbers daily as to what comes across 1,250 miles of Texas border, and the numbers are typically under 100, but maybe 100 or so a day across the whole distance before, whereas we might get, example, 18 December 2 years ago, 12,500 Venezuelans in Eagle Pass. So numbers-wise, optics and reality are matching up. Looks like they're doing a good job. I was just down at the border. I spent 3 days down there with Colonel Douglas McGregor. Took him down and gave him a tour, and did what in really a day and a half of time on the border. We got more done than his producer had hoped for. They were doing a documentary, and that ought to be coming out here pretty soon. So was able to take him to the key leaders and then show him the key points, of which then you might have seen him recently on Tucker Carlson talking about the missile systems that are across the border. We didn't see them personally, but I knew kind of the area where they would possibly be. Pointed it out, and we did see some technicals running through the area. Technicals being trucks with built up armament on them. So the cartels still are running in certain areas, not so much in the border towns as they were before. We could see them in Miguel Alemán, which is across from Roma, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. Now we don't physically see them in the cities. We saw rolling gunfights, 3 years ago. So there's the contesting of those points of entry, those ports of entry, really in the areas around them. The fights that went on between the cartels have diminished quite a bit. Some of that has to do with, I believe, with the obviously the new administration coming in, but the pressure being put on the Mexican government by the State Department. If that's what's doing it, then that might explain it. But either way, the optics have definitely changed. what I have seen too is the numbers. And I'm going to give you one example. Kinney County, 14 miles of border down there southwest of us. It would be from me in Central Texas here, between Eagle Pass and Del Rio, if people know that sector or understand, that's like the hot spots. And Kinney County is run by Sheriff Doug Coe, great guy. Took Doug McGregor in there to see him. Huge lifestyle Trump picture, and when you went in the lobby in the sheriff's office, which was great. You get over there and you ask Sheriff Coe, and he'll tell you we did 60 pursuits a month, 60 with 6 deputies, roughly. Okay, and that's other, DPS, Texas Department of Public Safety guys, etc. So now they're down to maybe at the most in a week 6. Okay, so that tells you something about the area and the activity. Also, the Texas in that sector, Texas itself built a pretty stout fence, barbed wire fence, concertina on the top, and pretty thick gauge hatch fence that goes up to it, which is down in the ground on a concrete slab on a lot of that sector, and that has changed because I could literally walk across back and forth across the river myself with the dog and maybe get chest height on some of those places. So, that those things have changed. So that's a good thing. So numbers wise, we're not seeing that. What does that do for us on the ground? Well, what that looks like is before 900 people, 1,000 people cross at a low water crossing, just like that in a night in the past. Usually the witching hour from about 1 in the morning till about 5 in the morning. And then when you're looking for the bad actors, right, the tangos or the counter, the terrorists, and we're conducting, observation to look for those. I was looking for a needle in a stack of needles, right? And we've talked about the analogy there before, you and I use it. But now it's like, okay, we can actually see, right? We can see person by person who's coming across, which is great. We did get some active duty guys that came down. I believe right now we have a brigade total extra on the border, but that's the whole border. So that's what it looks like. Drug movement has, subsequently come down, but it's pushed it, what I believe, more towards the ports of entry coming through the vehicles. And in those things, not disparaging anybody, but people have been bought off for ages on that border at crossings, and it's just a smuggling people do those tactics that they do. So those are I believe on the uprise, and so we're going to have to address those issues as that's coming along. Bear in mind now there's a lot more top cover when it comes to our federal agencies with regard to Border Patrol, ICE particularly. So they're the top cover being good guys that have been put into office and appointed. So they're holding their feet to the fire. Whereas before, Mayorkas was the master of these are not the droids you're looking for, and they got away with literally murder down there. Murder in the sense that hundreds of thousands of Americans died of fentanyl every year. So there's a lot to be said for the changes between now and then what was going on under the Biden administration. That's just a 40,000 foot view.
So the barbed wire that Texas put down, Biden had people come in and cut it out, and then Texas had to put it back in place again. Is that what happened?
Right. That's a triple strand concertina roll that was placed across at specifically the Shelby Park at Eagle Pass. And that was just to keep, because it's a very easy area for people to kind of do the end around on the port of entry. So that was where they had that contested part. And it was because there's 2 miles of essentially easement, if you will, that the federal government says we have jurisdiction here. So you got Border Patrol guys doing their job, and then you've got Texas National Guard. It's still the state of Texas. And so there was Texas National Guard occupied that port, the port underneath the actual bridge, underneath it, the park. And they said, okay, no, this is ours. So come and take it. And so that's what that turned into. And it was we build it, you cut it. We build it, you cut it. Don't know who were the actors. They were wearing CBP uniforms. I pray that they're no longer with the organization.
Yeah, 100% on that. And for those people who are watching who aren't familiar with the Texas National Guard, State Guard, approximately half the states have their own state guard that is not funded by the feds and does not answer to the feds and answers to the governor. Texas is one of those examples. Florida, we have a state guard as well. We actually sent our state guard to Texas multiple times to assist. Also, when you mentioned some corruption at border crossings. JJ Carroll was on again last night, and we have him on pretty frequently. He told me while he was still active duty as a special agent that he had firsthand knowledge of other CBP officers accepting bribes from cartels, where they would come to somebody and, you know, these guys are making 60, 70, 80,000 a year. And the cartels would say, look, we're coming through here tomorrow night at 2 a.m. There's a suitcase with $250,000 in it. Look the opposite way. And it was financially for those guys a game changer. I'm not justifying it whatsoever, but JJ has absolutely said that is a thing. So I just wanted to back up what you were saying.
Yeah, I'll attest to that too as well. You know, within 24 hours of our first 1,000 troops that we put on the border, numerous of them were elicited by cartel members in hotel rooms. The staff that worked at some of the hotel rooms were giving the room numbers to Spanish-speaking soldiers in the Texas National Guard and saying, here's their room number and here's their phone number. They would get a call in the room, and then they'd pick up the phone and say, hey, this is, you know, so-and-so. I'm with, you know, an organization down here, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you this amount of money if you do this. Now, some of our guys actually recorded it, gave it to us. Investigations were undertaken, and those things I never followed up on. But we got those guys out of that hotel. But once again, elicitation is a thing. Two Louisiana National Guardsmen were rolled up trafficking drugs through one of the checkpoints. One of the dogs hit on it. They were in uniform thinking, oh, we won't get rolled up. We're in uniform. Now they're in Leavenworth right now. So that can happen. And obviously the money seems really good.
Just to back up a little bit and give our audience some context, I want to make sure that I understand this right as well. So while you were active duty, you were on the border, but after you were active duty, you were also on the border gathering intel and sharing it with Texas DPS.
Correct.
And December 2023 was the worst of all months in the Biden-Mayorkas debacle. There was 250,000 encounters.
Yep.
So if there's 250,000 known encounters, what would you guesstimate would be the non-encounters, like the people who came across and were not confronted by somebody?
Right. Yeah, so they have this really technical term that they were using on the border called gotaways. Right. That's very technical. A lot of people can't understand that. I'll try to explain it. They got away. All right. So about I would say between 15 to 25% more than what was reported, and that really depended. Here's an example. That particular time of year after I had left the basically I was an active duty guardsman. I was on full time. When I was there on the 18th of December 2023, Eagle Pass, Venezuelans, 12,500 came across in less than 48 hours. We know that there were another, and that one particularly, the estimates were closer to 25% that were gotaways, because they play the end around game. So that's going to be your interesting traffic, right? You send everybody down the middle. It's crazy. It's out of control. Everybody, all hands on deck to that point. And then they start coming around with the interesting traffic. Same thing happened in Del Rio about a year before that, 17,000 Haitians, of which we know that another 6,000 probably came across, because we know what the town population was at that time, and then what they took on, which over doubled the population of that town of Del Rio.
So I just want to put out a couple of additional numbers for our audience so they can grasp just how dramatic the change is. On average, there were around 8,000 encounters at the border per day during the Biden admin. The worst days were 11,000, according to CBP. And there were days where it was less, 3, 4, 5,000. The numbers I was able to retrieve right now, Doc, and I'm sure you can verify it, are somewhere between 200 and 250 encounters per day.
That sounds right. Empirically, that does sound right.
Yeah, the drop off. Basically, what I got from DHS was current encounters at the southern border are somewhere around 3% of what they were during the entire 4 years of Mayorkas and Biden. So
I 100% agree with you. Yes.
With no new laws.
Say again?
With no new laws.
Right. Yeah, it's just enforcing laws we have. The secondary thing to understand is the CBP1 app that came along somewhere during that later phase of the Biden administration, and that allowed the ones that were seeking asylum to, because of the laws, the way that asylum is worded, you have to seek asylum from one country away from where you're from. So they could do it then on CBP app in Venezuela, kick off the program, and then if they got themselves to Mexico, they got approved because they were in Mexico. It was a crazy, shell game that was played, and they could fly directly into the United States, so they didn't even have to cross into across the border. They could just fly directly into the States. Now, I can't verify this, but there was rumor that there were flights coming in specifically for those from secondary, tertiary, beginning routes. I don't know that, but
Global X.
say again.
It was Global X.
There you go. Yeah, and so I can't prove it, but I have heard enough of that I can verify that does make sense, because the numbers in the country, we truly don't really know what came in during the Biden administration. As far as just like with the kids that were missing, 86,000 were originally reported. Then they allowed, after Tara Rodas came up and testified before Congress, you got 350,000 roughly missing. These are unaccompanied minors from across the border. And truly, all along, we were saying it's got to be a minimum 500,000, and I believe more than that. But this is a travesty beyond belief, to just humanity-wise. It is criminal. We could say it 1,000 times, and now we're just waiting for the accountability.
So J.J. Carroll's sources that are still in the CBP, of course, he was 23 years special agent CBP, put the official number at 550,000, and JJ said it's at least double that. That's just the ones that got caught. And it was a really interesting discussion. The other part to this that I want to ask about, I want to back up for a second, because you mentioned the cartels. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the cartels are not going to walk away from billions of dollars. It's not millions, billions of dollars in human trafficking and drugs. Are you aware of any changes in their modus operandi now that the border's been tightened up so much?
Absolutely. They're going to New Mexico and going out in the for the interesting, we call it interesting traffic. The more nefarious type movements, before they could get away with a lot more, because it was just so much of a semi-permissive environment for us to be able to operate in. Not in the fact that they were shooting at us, although that did happen in little pot shots on the border here and there, more probing type attacks. But I'm talking about the ability to completely go into an area and dominate. Texas Rangers, the special operations team, had to go into an island in the middle of the river and actually literally kitted up, ready for bear. And luckily, none of that went down. But it was a contested island that the cartels were saying it was theirs. Mexico, and then Texas is saying it's theirs. Well, Texas just took the first stance, went down there, got on the island, secured the buildings that were out there, which were drop-off points for caches, and then literally flattened every bit of foliage that was on that island so they could see it from the U.S. side. So that's a difference. Yeah, there is definitely a difference there, but they're not going to go away quietly into the night. This is a terrorist. These are now terrorist organizations. We knew it then. We told the governor's office so numerous times, if you just give us the FTO designation, we, by the Constitution of the state of Texas, can go across that border, and we can work on some of this stuff, or we can do it with financially going through some trail to follow the money kind of things, and maybe hold up some of their money. But either way, whether it was followed or not, it didn't happen. And so then we see that now. So they're really quiet. I believe some of that is pressure from the Mexican government, but the Mexican government really only controls right around Mexico City. So I don't know, how dirty that government is, but I would imagine it hasn't changed much with the new president that's in there. Sean Brun.
Yeah. Shine Bomb, I think it is, but
okay, there you go. Shine Bomb.
I think that's what it is, but
okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
So you answered my question I was going to ask you about, has any entry been tracked going into New Mexico? You answered that question for me. which I thought was real possibility, obviously, because that governor's real friendly about this stuff.
Yeah.
You've got a phenomenon that's going on, or at least was going on down there on some of the border towns, where you had minor coyotes that were leading illegals across the border. And then those illegal coyotes, if they got caught, they were taking them to the Mexican consulate and then shipping them right back over into Mexico. And they were coming right back in the next day. Is that been dealt with, or is that still going on?
I believe that that is still going on in certain areas that have. And this is the key is really even though it's a consulate, so that's a Department of State thing. But there's a different flavor on every little sector on the border, and so it really depends on the flavor. And I hate to say it that simply, but that's what it is, because it trickles down. They're going to work together, right? Laredo is totally different than Maverick County. You know, Laredo is just it's completely. There are a lot of people that have been bought off in Laredo, and I know a lot of people down there, a lot of officials, a lot of law enforcement, and I don't say that every one of them, but I just say that it's you really got to watch your back. Starr County is another county that's like that, and so you can see that there's a coordinated. It appears to be, in my estimate, a coordinated effort to aid and assist. So it's almost like they're working by, with, and through our own legislators at the local level with, at that time, the State Department. I have reason to believe that the State Department is cleaning up its act, but I'll wait until the jury is out. You know, when they get back in and we see what happens, because it's I don't hold my breath on this stuff when it comes to the border. It's such a different environment. It's truly unique to every sector, and I only know Texas sectors, and even El Paso, I don't know much about it and spend a lot of time down that way, but it is its own entity unto itself. It's more like New Mexico.
Well, two questions, Doc. Let's back up to New Mexico for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I heard you right. So the cartels are currently preferring to come in through New Mexico as opposed to elsewhere, or was that prior to Trump being sworn into office?
It's just easier to come into Texas, and with all the chaos and the seams and the gaps, that's what people exploit, those seams and gaps in chaos. The chaos is diminished. They're going to move to places that are more desolate, more remote, and in doing that requires more work on their part. So naturally, they don't want to do that, but I believe that they're going to have to do that. I would have to do that. Look, if I'm crossing borders and I'm just crossing them with ease, I'm not going to take my time to worry about taking them way out to the deserts of Chihuahuan Desert and then have to cut across, hundreds of miles to take some interstate traffic and then put, carpet on my feet so you can't tell my footprints, and then march them in and then go to a drop-off point with some little remote road where it could be easily watched by some sort of surveillance from the sky. I'm not going to run that risk, but they're going to run the risk now to be able to move the product or person or whatever interesting thing that it is. So that's just a nature of the tightening down. And that's why I say they're not just going to sit around in their hands for very long. They've got to create some sort of chaos. And so that's where I go looking for, okay, where is the next potential chaos going to take place? And that's why I do still talk to Michael Yon today. Matter of fact, I linked him up with some guys that are working down there in Panama, as he's dealing with that situation or keeping eyes on that situation, not only in the gap, but the canal itself, because there's potential for that to become a hotbed as well. And so we're watching this stuff. But I also, when he calls and says, hey, there's 17,000 Haitians heading Del Rio, I listen, because it happens.
So just a little bit of clarification. So even though we have significant assets now deployed along the southern border, essentially the New Mexico border is so remote and unfriendly, we don't have as many assets there. Is that?
Oh, I don't know the deployment schedule. It's a brigade. So I don't know. These. Okay, for example, when I went down with Colonel Douglas McGregor, so you guys probably know him. Maybe you've had him on your show, and you should if you haven't. I didn't really know him, but I went down there, and after 3 days, got to know him pretty well. Extremely articulate man, extremely well-versed in military history and tactics. He was at the battle in the first Gulf War at 22 Easting, which is a large tank battle. So he's had some experience in that kind of world. anyway, we were discussing what's the fix down here. And the fix is to first of all, I'm a laissez-faire kind of guy. So, that's old terms for hands off the rest of the world and bring everybody back here and secure our borders, both north and south, primarily most of the troops on the south, but start rotations on that border and create a not a demilitarized zone like you'd think of between Guantanamo Bay and Cuba or, North and South Korea, but a demilitarized zone in permissibilities. So if we start rotating troops down there, it makes them harder to hide, which includes out there in the desert. And so I don't know the numbers out there, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd have to look that one up. I just pay attention to my sector down here, but I have seen them. I mean, there's Marines down here right now, and there's other kind of combat arms brigade type elements that are down here. I'd like to see more aviation, because aviation would really speed things up a bit, but I'm not a green suitor anymore, so it doesn't matter to me. I still got to drive.
Okay, so that leads into the next question I had, Doc. So you're a Green Beret for years, and now that the cartels have been declared FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations, and we've basically said if we have to come into Mexico to interdict the cartels and gangs, we're going to do that. What are your thoughts on the possibilities of that going kinetic? Because we've seen lots of open source intel that says we've had a lot of assets in Mexico for years, but it's been hands off, gather intel, that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts as far as it potentially going kinetic?
Right. So we'd have to start with the geopolitical side of the house first. We're going to look at what the State Department's discussing. I'm sure they are. And they're gonna give to a certain point enough rope, if you are, enough time for them to make a decision whether they're going to work with us or not. But understand this: there are two words in this answer that are very serious and very action oriented, and those words are Title 50. And so if those elements that are out there that are capable of conducting a Title 50 operation, which is a covert operation, much like going after bin Laden in Pakistan, when you essentially are an ally with Pakistan, but you got to go after a dude in there, you're going to give them notification, but you're not going to do it in so much leeway that it leaks out and blows your operation. So that would be for them the most dangerous course of action for them. And for us, it'd be the most direct action focused response. So anything shy of that is then going to be the by, with, and through type of stuff, what Green Berets would do. But in this case, this is an unconventional warfare because this is a friendly nation. So this is going to be foreign internal defense, FID, which is a totally different, in some ways, different because you're working with a host nation that should be an ally. And this is a really tough one to estimate what Mexico is going to do, or do they even have operational control in those areas? I don't believe that they do in most of the areas along the border. I just don't believe it. And so they're laying low right now, they being the cartels, but they're reconfiguring what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. In the same time, I would pray that we have enough people out there that are doing, the acronym is F3EAD: find, fix, finish, exploit, analyze, disseminate. Those are the things that we do in order to quickly turn a cycle and get rid of an enemy force like ISIS in Syria. So if they're in the find and fix, which they should be right now, they being our guys that have that capability, that would be called an advanced force type of operation, where you're preparing things for, setting conditions for, to conduct a Title 50 operation. I don't have any knowledge of any operation going on, nor do I want to know, because I don't want access to things like that could potentially, put people in harm's way if I were to say the wrong thing. So I don't know. I don't ask those questions, and I do talk to those old colleagues.
Rhetorical question. I mean, are Mexico really an ally? I mean, the level of corruption in Mexico and the number of officials in Mexico are on the payroll of one cartel and another. Again, it's a rhetorical question, but
yeah, Mexico. Yeah, Mexico is a almost a failed nation. It's not too much more to where they're going to be like Venezuela. Now you see what happened with Venezuela. Now they're kind of coming around and going, okay, we got the Trump administration in there. Things are a little different. But oh, by the way, we might have been involved with this or that right there, or pushing these Tren de Aragua, the train of Aragua, the region in the northern part of Venezuela that a lot of the criminals came from. They're now saying, okay, yeah, we were and we will take some of these back. I mean, they're going to have to, because they have to trade as well. And I think that there's pressure on them from different groups that where this comes from. You know, the one of the largest cartels, well, probably the largest South American cartel right now that just puts all the rest of them to shame collectively is the Cartel. I'm going to say it wrong. The Del Solos, the Cartel of the Sun. All right.
Okay.
So these are the generals of Venezuela, and so that's, you know, that obviously shines a little light on the brokenness of their. I don't even know what they're even called. Their oligarchy, whatever they're not a democracy nor are they a republic.
Yeah.
But Mexico is much along the way there, because it would be a cartel run organization in most of the areas that they just don't have operational control over. And
Quick
so
comment.
I don't trust that.
Yeah, quick comment, and then I think S2 has something to ask you.
Yep.
So JJ Carroll said what we need to do is go to all of the landowners along the southern border
Yep.
and purchase around 500 feet in from the border from each
Yep.
of those property owners, compensate them well, give them like 5 to 10 times what the property value is actually worth, and then pour a concrete slab all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific.
Yeah.
And his line of thinking is it's kind of like a DMZ zone, but basically anybody who comes across the border and steps foot on that cement pad gets high-speed lead poisoning. There's no warning shot, nothing else. He said that would probably go on for a matter of days, and that would be the end of people coming across the border.
Oh, I believe he's right. I do know that there's some rules of engagement things that the lawyers would love to take months to figure out. Same issues we dealt with. We dealt with landowners along the Texas border, and were able to obtain bits and pieces of their properties along there. But some landowners didn't want to cooperate. They may have been on the take themselves, or they just didn't want to cooperate. I can't know that. But we've dealt with them specifically from Brownsville all the way over to just about all the way to the Big Bend.
So part of JJ's reasoning, by the way, to back it up 500 feet is to make it that much more difficult for the cartels to dig tunnels underground, just back it up as far as we can with cement sort of thing, and let them run into the bottom of that ginormous
look,
slab.
you know, any kind of barrier is going to be something that sets a line in the sand, so to speak, and that's what he's talking about there.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, you've made your decision now, you've cut across this, but there will always be the whack-a-mole game going on the border. There's just no way around it, because there are some people that literally their homes are right on the water on the Rio Grande down there by especially around Eagle Pass, Del Rio, all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley, where even if you put a fence on this side, you're going to fence out Americans. So they live on the river. And they're just little communities, almost like living on a river in, you know, Weeki Wachee in Florida, you know. So I mean, that's what it seems like. So
S2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to answer your question, Chris. There's about 10,000 troops that are down there right now. They sent 1,400 across in the first wave, 1,500 across in the first wave, and then they brought another 2,500 that gave them 4,000, and then another 9,000 were taken down there. They've got air aviation support, Black Hawk Chinook helicopters, and of course the Stryker Brigade they sent down there, and they've got a 650 troop general support aviation battalion down there. So that gives you that information there. I find it a little disturbing that a lot of this detailed information is so readily available on the internet. It's like, do our folks not know what OPSEC is?
Exactly. It's, you know, I choose not to know certain things just because it's a lot easier, you know, not to slip, and I don't have a need to know. So I have no problem working in that world of not needing to know. I know, you know, I work at the very tactical level, so I just deal with the people that I deal with. But it is bad practice, as you say, to post what your layout is. You know, your array of forces in a scenario like this. Bad practice.
I'm sitting here looking at all of the units. You've got them broken down by units here. I'm looking at it.
And the cartel's looking at it too.
Exactly. And last week they just sent out an early Burke class guided missile destroyer down to the Gulf. So there's that too.
Yeah, we call it the Gulf of Texas, but we always have. Yeah.
I just call it the Gulf.
There you
Yeah,
go.
and force of habit, I accidentally referred to as Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. Thanks for the correction. Last month, Trump's CBP numbers were 8,400 encounters along the entire border. And ironically enough, 8,400 divided by 28 days works out to exactly 300 a day. And that number has now diminished even further beyond that. Is there anything else you want to add on the border, Doc, before we carry on to the next bucket?
I mean, the recommendations that we came up with, look, when we did this documentary, this was primarily for Trump's, viewage, because he knows, he being Colonel McGregor knows that, he likes to, look at sound bites and quick information. And this is to get them, the most recent information with a couple of minds that, can talk about, military response to things. We didn't discuss, what the states should do with regard to tariffs, or what the, the Fed side should do. But yeah, this is the point of doing this for this last documentary. This wasn't to, put it out there so people go, gee whiz. We're trying to affect change in a different way. And sometimes that's how it works.
Okay. So I just want to quickly mention to our audience, today's sit rep is available at patreon.com/c/survival dispatch. There's a clickable link below, $9.99 a month or $95 a year. And that gets you all of our daily sit reps, which are very verbose. And the reason I say that is this first chapter, Doc, you had a look at it. There's reams of data and numbers that I put in there. And we don't always have time to cover all the fine details like that. But I did want to mention to our audience, there's a ton of information in there, as well as the fact that insiders get an invite to our private signal chat. And it averages 2,000, 2,500 messages a day. A busy day, 3,000 messages. S2 is a big player in that. He shares a metric shit ton of intel with people in there. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one, Doc. And let's look at the internal side of this equation and Donald Trump and Tom Homan's mass deportation efforts.
Right. Yeah, I have not seen at my level much about that, other than what we can garner from open source intelligence. But I have seen this, and this is what I've seen on the ports of entry. I've seen what I saw before in reverse. I see big trucks coming in with suitcases. These are pickup trucks with a trailer on it. Suitcases, stacked 20 feet high, and they're driving across the ports of entry south, whereas before they used to be coming north. They were the people like the baggage claim, if you will. When the person came across the port of entry, they would go meet at a certain parking lot, and then they would go get their bag out of the back of this truck. It was very well organized. I'm seeing that now, not as the same numbers, but just the other day down there with the colonel the other day last week, I'm noticing, I'm like, okay, where's that guy going? Let's follow it and see. And he literally drives right on the port of entry and goes south. So I've heard that. I've talked to some local guys in the National Guard, and they're saying, yeah, there's self deportations that are taking place. There's two reasons for that. One is, ICE is going out and rounding people up. I get it. But the other one is the milk and honey that they were promised, they're not getting, right? They being the people that were used as pawns, were being thrown into major cities around the country. And if they can make their way back down, if they've got enough money, they're just going to go ahead and go, because there's not enough jobs for them. There's not places for them to live. And, they made it through a winter, and they're probably thinking, okay, this isn't what we thought. This is not, I mean, just looking at it, so we're seeing that. I don't know the numbers of that, but I would say that that's going to be something we're going to see a little bit more of. And I think a lot of that is fear driven, that, they're going to roll it. But I have heard things like, up where I'm from on the, North Texas, the Red River, the manufacturing companies and some of the meat packing plants in Amarillo and all the way over to Gainesville, Texas, where the trailer manufacturers, all the horse trailer stuff is right along that horse country. And those things that they're losing, employees because they hired illegals to work there. They had their printed up social security card number, and they just kind of turned the other way and said, oh yeah, they're legal. And none of the local sheriffs would because they're typically peaceful people that come in and work hard, pay, cash for everything. People look the other way. That system's been going on since the days of Pancho Villa. People came across to work, migrant workers, and people would send money home to their families and all that. But now what we've seen, all those same places up there, albeit they're losing their employees now, were Venezuelans coming in, okay, not atypical workers, not Mexicans, atypical nationalities, and then putting in like anchor areas. And so you see this big influx of areas that would be kind of just grow massively with this particular ethnicity, or this, Venezuelans tend to go to one place, and then Guatemalans would be at another place. The Colonia over there north of Houston, which before it was exposed, Liberty County north of Houston, about 40 miles. It would probably house up to 400,000 illegals. That's what they were going for, and that place is getting shut down now.
Expand on that a little bit more. Somebody built essentially an entire city for illegals.
Yeah, basically it's from the air, and I've got video footage of us flying over it when we first saw it. Went down there with Michael Yon and Vandersteel and the crew, and flew over it, took video, and about 20,000 people were living there then. And it looks like a trailer park really from the air. There's no electric lines, there's no sewage, there's no water. But they were selling plots of land, mortgaging, and making money off illegals. That was their intent. So we exposed it. They exposed it. I just flew around in a chopper for a while and said that's where it's at after I saw it on the ground. And then we exposed it, and then did the backsides, had the PIs come in, the investigators, and then followed the money. And then money went to a Trey Harris guy. That's his name. But oddly enough, Harris County is just south of Liberty. And so Trey Harris is building this, making lots of money. And then his buddies in the county are, selling services, sewage, and all this other stuff. They're making money hand over fist.
For the people who aren't aware of this, Harris County is essentially the greater Houston area. And I don't know if you caught it or not, Doc, but there was a massive bust there today. I believe it had something to do with child sex trafficking. I just caught
number one city for that in Texas.
Wow, that's astonishing. So a couple quick things.
It was drugs that they got.
Okay.
Was it?
Like I say, it was out of the corner of my eye that I caught something on it. So a couple things, Doc. You said that this has been going on for years. People turning, looking the other way when, migrants, invaders, whatever you want to call them, are here. And you're from Texas, so you must remember Cashway back in the day before we had Lowe's and Home Depots, the Cashway building centers that stretched from Texas up through the Midwest.
That's right.
We would pull into a Cashway at 5 before 7 in the morning, because the contractor desk would open at 7 a.m. I'm going back into the late 80s, early 90s, and they would be outside the door. The Mexicans would be lined up as far as you could see, from one end of the parking lot to the next. And at that time, $5 a day. They would work for $5 a day back late 80s, early 90s. None of them were really skilled, but hardworking. The odd one was skilled, but most of them, the biggest thing they brought to the table was work ethic, really hard workers. A couple quick things, and then I'll turn over to S2 for some questions. So I ran some numbers on the first 50 days of Trump being in office, so January 20th to March the 10th, okay? And there were 32,809 illegal migrants arrested, and that averaged out to 656 per day. And these are from ICE, by the way. And 14,111 of them were convicted criminals. 9,980 had pending criminal charges. Over 1,150 of them were confirmed gang members, so TDA, MS-13, etc. And then on top of that, the total deportations during that 50 days was 60,000, rounded off a little bit. Pretty respectable numbers right out of the gate without having the resources that are really necessary to do the mass deportations and whatnot. But S2, did you have something you wanted to put in at this point?
I just wanted to make a mention of I think the number's up to 343 now. TDA members have been taken down to El Salvador to their lovely new home.
That's right.
And it looks like we've got some, I think it's 177 that are in Gitmo right now.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I used to work down there, so I knew that they had some pretty new cells that they had built out, and so it's kind of glad that they're using them.
Yeah, absolutely. S2, just to explain the El Salvador program a little bit for our audience, like why are we sending these illegal aliens to El Salvador instead of their country of origin?
So El Salvador has a supermax prison down there. Wasn't built specifically for this, but it's a supermax prison down there where they've made a deal with El Salvador that the United States will pay to send those gang members down there. They are the worst of the worst of the worst, obviously. So the United States is paying to send them down there and house them and whatnot down in that area. So that's kind of the program that Trump set up between him and Bukele.
Do either one of you have any idea what the cost is? I couldn't find anything on it, but I saw a comment from the government of El Salvador saying that what we were paying them to house these criminals is a small number for us, but a big number for them. But I couldn't find any confirmation on that. And it's been years since I've tracked down numbers on the cost to incarcerate a person in the United States. I want to say 10 years ago it was somewhere around 50K. Don't quote me on that. I'm sure it's higher than that now. I'm just curious what it's costing us to send them to El Salvador. Aren't they part of a manufacturing process as well, beyond making license tags? I'm sure I saw something from the El Salvador government saying that all the people that are in prison there are basically put to work every day to produce stuff for the government.
Yeah, it'll be a chain gang kind of thing.
That's the way we used to do it.
That's
It's
right.
the number that we're paying, I think, is $6 million.
Which is really a drop in the bucket compared to what we would be dealing with on this side with regard to crime, et cetera, and the costs for all that stuff, and then lives, which we can't really put a cost on. So I would say, if that's going to get them out of here, then let's do it and keep doing it. Gitmo is, it's already been paid for essentially, but it still requires a daily per diem for food and things like that. And the guards are, if it's the same, it'll be a National Guard unit from somewhere in the country, usually Army, military police that run the inside the camps, and then the outside of the base, the typical shore. We used to call them shore patrol, whatever they call them now. I think the Navy has a different name, but they're they run the base, but inside the camps it's Army, military police.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So let's move on to the next bucket of updates on child sex trafficking, interdiction. And I know this is something that you and your team are focused on and very passionate over, rightfully so. What do you have for updates in that regard, Doc?
Well, with regard, I have two different updates. One is just what we're seeing on the big picture. Once again, I always try to start there and just tell you kind of what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. And so what I'm seeing is the sex trafficking interdiction that has completely skyrocketed with regard to the amount of man hours being placed against that. Right? Okay. There again, that should be, if it's crossing state lines, obviously the FBI. As far as once they grab them, then it becomes the marshals and they move them. So I don't know the numbers. I really don't have any numbers, but I know in talking to folks that the amount of emphasis is being put on there has quadrupled as far as from the Biden administration, because they're not worried about J6ers anymore. Really, that's my personal opinion on that. But in doing that, and it would be a lot easier for us if we could start diving into some of this Epstein stuff to look for the big fish. But either way, we're going to work our way up to that. It's just going to take a little longer. So those things require a lot of find and fix on the F3 EAD model with regard to those guys on the federal side, and with the different groups that I deal with. And we deal with a lot of groups now. We're part of a unofficial non-governmental task force of former military guys and gals that are out there, beating the bush. And I'm going to tell you something that's really taken a huge turn is the interest, especially after that movie that came out down there. And I know it's a movie and it's not based on 100% reality, but the idea that people are paying attention to it and going, what can I do? right? And so now you have people that are getting trained up in OSINT warriors. They're saying, well, what are the key indicators for me in my neighborhood at the tactical level to identify whether it's a stash house for kids? And so more and more people are now coming out, and I've seen that personally, and saying, hey, I think this one, hey, I think that one. And so for us, that results in information being sent to our guys, the different task forces that we do. They're not ours, they're not on our team, but because we've all met now 3 times, and this last meeting we had hundreds of members from different groups around the country, and we met at a undisclosed location about 6 miles from the Canadian border in the middle of winter that we had to drive through a storm. That's a whole nother story. But we really are seeing a lot of now investigatory side things happening. Now, does that mean that these teams are going to be kicking the doors? Most likely not, but they're going to remain eyes on until local law enforcement can come in and do it, depending on their makeup. A lot of the teams out there have former law enforcement who still carry credentials like us. Every person on my team still carries Texas credentials for the Texas on Council and Law Enforcement. So we can actually, if the sheriff or the law peace officer in that area says, hey, we want to bring you on the team to be kind of eyes on and to maintain, you won't be kicking the door because you don't know our standard operating procedures, but we'll be there on the X. So that's a great thing, because now we're working in conjunction with those officers of those municipalities and counties that are allowing for that. It's not every county. Typically more constitutionally, leaning counties. But in Texas, there's quite a few. So, we feel real good about that. It does give us a lot more work, but that's what we're doing it for, is so that we can get, more of this stuff taken down. But at the tactical small level, eventually it's going to trickle up to the big fish, because I would love to see the Diddy list come out and the Epstein list come out, start taking down some of these big guys. But until then, we got to keep, beating down the doors. And to me, that keeps them on their heels, because now they know that people are working from the bottom up, and we need to get the Department of Justice to start working from the top down.
So JJ Carroll and I had a conversation on the process at the border when children came across, many of them with just something hanging around their neck with supposedly their name and their destination, those sort of things.
Right. Yeah.
And I asked them if there was any merit to, there's some reports out there that say that there were people in a position to place these children in the first 72 hours. And I don't know if it's an urban legend or not, which is why I asked JJ, that supposedly one of these people who was placing children, and I understand there's multiple different agencies who may be involved in that, because there's a regulation or a law that says they have to be processed within 72 hours. And I had read this, again, I don't know if it's an urban legend or not, this report that somebody said to their manager, hey, this looks kind of fishy here. There's already 40 kids have been sent to this address. And supposedly the manager said to that person, ignore it, don't do anything. And the person said, well, doesn't that kind of seem like maybe it's human trafficking, child trafficking? And apparently the manager said, yeah. And if you send those kids there, it won't create any extra work for us, because they never give the kids back to us.
Right. That's
like other locations. Right. I asked JJ point blank, I said, is that actually happening? And he didn't even pause. He said, absolutely, 100%. He said, I've seen it with my own eyes.
And I will corroborate that 100%. I heard it firsthand from probably the same person, but one other one that worked like that. Exactly the attitude that they had. So now we see a different, management in town. So we shouldn't be seeing that as much.
Hey, Pete, got a question
Yes, sir.
for you. Now that we know, and we've known for a long time, at least you and I have, and a bunch of other people, that Mayorkas was the mastermind behind all of this, and even right on down to the child trafficking, if we go back to the Office of Refugee and Resettlement, they were part of it too.
Yeah.
Why is it nothing is being done to hold those people accountable in those agencies?
Great question.
Why haven't we heard anything about Mayorkas?
Great question. And here's what I believe. And this is based upon money, right? Every time one of those kids went from one of those, intake centers down there, it went to an NGO. All right. That was typically one of the first stops. They held on to them for a period of time to do the wraparound services. They might need some psychological care or medical care, whatever. We needed to feed them. We need to try to get them to their family. The little, placard. I've seen them on their neck. My aunt lives in Atlanta. I don't speak English. Get me there. I'm 7 years old. I just came across the border by myself. All right. So you got that. So every time that they changed hands with one of these organizations, lots of money per diem went into that pot for that initial transaction. This stuff is, they're treating them like cattle. And so they transact them, and then they move them to another one. There's another transaction. They may end up going back to the original NGO if they just can't place them. So then there's another transaction. So then who is profiting from those transactions? That's the question. And who wants to hide that? Because why are we not investigating that? 100% great question. And that is probably the question of the day when it comes to the movement of these children, because when Trump got up and spoke, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw bits and pieces of his speech to the to the House, both bodies. When the left side just decided we're not gonna stand up and do all that. I get it. There's a lot of theatrics there and all that. And we're gonna hold up our little stupid signs, theatrics. But if there's a single person in there that doesn't have a heart for some kid that's missing and being transferred around, it's one of two things. Either you got a heart of Satan inside of you, all right, either that, or maybe a combination of both, or somehow that the money that you got from whatever lobby or from whatever group that's out there lobbying you for your reelection, somehow that's going to be transferred or tracked back to that particular action. We're not going to investigate it, or we're not going to push for it. This is why it's so important. And a lot of that information came from Tara Rodas. I was there in the room when she, right here in Dripping Springs, when she laid out the pieces of paper and said, this is how many kids I'm trying to find. And we took the ones from Austin and said, well, we'll go look for these. And that's what we did. Right. And that's where we started. That's really how we kicked off doing this, because we had direct information from the person that was the whistleblower. So, that's a great question, because it should be answered. And to me, it just reeks of I'm covering my ass because I took a lot of money.
Well, is it Cash? I mean, is Cash trying to build a case on this? What's the deal here? There is no lack of evidence here.
Yeah, he should be. Bongino's there now. If these guys are really men of their word that have said so much when they were on podcasts at large level, Bongino show, et cetera, it's more than a podcast. But that if they are men of their word, then they need to get after it. I know they got a lot of work on their plate. I know they got a lot of things to fix within their own morally bankrupt institutions, but we've got to get this going. And I'm seeing the numbers. I see that. It's just the accountability. If that doesn't happen in the next 6 months, then it's only going to lead me to believe that somehow that they've been leveraged. I don't believe that they are now, but over time, people can be leveraged, and so I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah. So I think part of this with Mayorkas, by the way, I was just going through some old emails from Lisa McGee, and Mayorkas was part of the blast of FOIAs that her and Todd sent
That's
to
right.
the federal government. And as best as I can tell, they were unable to produce a valid oath of office for Mayorkas. I was trying to see if there was any follow-up after the one that said, this is not valid because it's not notarized. And somebody actually on X the other day ago pointed out that some officials don't have to have a notarized oath of office for it to be in effect, but if they don't have it notarized, they have to give a sworn statement. And so if the oath of office is not notarized and there's no sworn statement, they're not occupying their position legally, essentially.
Yeah, I did lend a little bit of, if you want, expertise to that operation that they were conducting on the FOIAs. And I would say that the job requires that, and there's no getting around whether or not you actually have one on file or not. It's just a requirement. My job as a soldier was to protect the Constitution, to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America in this constitutional republic. However, if for whatever reason it didn't get put into the system correctly, or wasn't notarized, which is not going to be my fault, it still doesn't negate the fact that I still have to do that because it's a requirement for the job. And so just like a pardon that gets auto signed, or a pardon that for a crime that you haven't really been accused of, or convicted of, as the law reports in the U.S. Code, those pardons mean nothing too. But that's the that's the white space that they build to confuse people, and then have them arguing about that when the real problem is they're getting away with literally murder sometimes.
So obviously I'm not an attorney. And when you all were doing this with Todd, I said to Todd, I said, well, stupid question. What's the consequence of not having a valid oath of office? And Todd's answer to me is that if you're a government official, you don't have a valid oath of office, and you're charged with treason, the death penalty doesn't come into play because you're an imposter. You're not really an official. Whereas if you did have a valid oath of office and you got tried, convicted, that you could face the death penalty or would likely face the death penalty. And he said it was kind of a hedge against a future administration coming in and cherry picking members of the cabinet and, having them pay a heavy price for it. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that or not, but again, I'm paraphrasing this on attorney.
Yeah, I didn't have that conversation, but if I committed a war crime downrange without an oath of office, I'm still going to be accountable for it. So that's me, but those are words that lawyers use, and I love Todd Callender to death, but he's playing devil's advocate there. I know he is, because I know him well enough.
Right.
And I'll be seeing him in a couple of weeks here, next couple of weeks. So we won't be talking about that, but yeah, the way forward is going to be the second part to the answer of the original question that you gave me on the child trafficking. So for us as a team, we are conducting what's called conflict resolution right now. It's a best way that I can describe it, and that is with border towns on the Mexican side. So we've picked an area. We started at the worst of the worst, the area in I just won't say the name of the town right now because I don't want people to go looking for me on the street. This is not undercover cool guy stuff. This is getting things done at a much higher level with people at higher levels, which then are more business suit type meetings, but in order to change mindset, right? And so these are the things that I used to have to do downrange in Pakistan, Afghanistan with warlords or upper level guys to say, hey, look, I'm just a doctor. I'm here to help, and can I get into your place here, and let me see if I can help your folks after this earthquake in Pakistan in 2005. That's really the first time I ever did it, and realized that we could get a lot more done that way than we ever did with bullets. And so when you get people to stop shooting at you, typically you don't have to shoot much, and typically you don't have to when they're concerned about a mafia style mentality. Let's just use the Haqqani network, for example, in Afghanistan, Pakistan border, just around the Jalalabad area. They're basically mafia guys. They don't care about jihad. They just want to run drugs and run donkeys full of, supplies across the border as, mafia style. So then you go, okay, well, why are we even fighting these guys? Let's cut back and, just talk to them.
All right. So let's wrap up on child sex trafficking with a question for both of you. So within days of Trump coming into office, there was this announcement by an individual on X that said the new Trump admin had found 60,000 foreign children, not first few days, first few weeks, pardon me. Mm-hmm. And I went on the hunt looking for information on that, and I have been unable to find anything that backs that up. So I've got it. Okay. So love to hear what came out of that.
Oddly enough, I'm looking at the map right now with all of the dots on it. You've got some that are the only states that they're not in are the middle to northern states, right beside Seattle and Portland. So if you go over 1, 2, 3, 4 states, there's none in there, but the majority of them looks like they were moving them around into Houston and some other interior spots into Texas, and they had a really heavy concentration of them down in Southern California. You had Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, San Mateo, Hayward, Pittsburgh, a bunch of other cities in there. But the major focus for them was going to be scattering them all over, looks like the southeast up into the northeast, with the northeast being the greatest concentrations, obviously, in New York and those areas. So that's what I'm looking at right now as far as the map. The numbers that I'm sitting here looking at right now are roughly about 43 to 50,000.
So the X post was made by a guy at CRRJA5 and at SX Doc, and they claimed, this is at the 3-week point, 75 to 80,000 of the 350,000, which we know it's a much bigger number, missing children had physically been located at that point in time by the Trump admin. And I like, all I'm saying is I've been unable to confirm that with any follow-up reports that say we located them and we went and removed them from wherever they were. That's, again, I haven't seen anything to really support that in concrete terms. But anyways, moving on to the fourth bucket here, Doc. Hurricane Helene relief efforts in West North Carolina. Quick question. How many people would you estimate still have no power, water, don't have a home?
I would say anybody that's along the corridor that goes east-west through Asheville, on over towards, the eastern part, the eastern seaboard, along that highway there. I believe that's Highway 40. Those are pretty much, everybody's got power again. Candler, where we were at, one of the primary spots, which is a little bit west north of the Asheville area. It was back up by the time we left our second go round there. It was pretty much back up. The water was still dirty. They still had to boil their water. They still had to, periods of water being shut down as pipes were being fixed in certain areas. And that was in December. So that's by now that should be done. I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm going to say that seeing what I saw, just flying over up into the hollers, up into the, the areas between kind of Boone is a little bit up to the northeast, but from Boone down through Banner, is it Banner Elk? Yeah, Banner Elk. And then some of the places over towards Yancey, Avery County. As you get further north into the mountains, the watershed areas, those bridges were all out. I mean, there wasn't many watershed river tributaries coming down to the big rivers, down to the Tennessee River, that were not washed out. And so just getting equipment up to those was a huge task. So I would imagine that probably about 10 to 15%, maybe even up as high as 25% of the people north of those major throughways still are waiting to get the full. They probably have power restored. They're pretty quick at doing that. There were trucks from all over the country that were there from the eastern seaboard. I mean, saw them from Florida, saw crews from Oregon that were out there. So they were out there working. So I would imagine that a lot of those power-wise are back up. But as far as water, clean water, some of those are still probably looking at, probably about a quarter of the people, maybe even more than that. But that's just an estimate based upon looking at disasters.
So I'm not sure why the TSA has been involved in the Hurricane Helene relief efforts, both in North Carolina and Florida, but they are. And somebody put in a request to them asking how many people were being housed in hotels that are being paid for by the TSA. And the number in North Carolina came up to somewhere between 10 and 13,000. And this is recent. This is as of March 10th.
Okay.
And they estimated that all of this is estimations, by the way, because I'm going to tell you why in a second. So 10 to 13,000 approximately in hotels being paid for by TSA in North Carolina. Yep. They extrapolated that and said, 4,000, 4,600 households. But that number, of course, doesn't include people who are staying with family, an RV, 2 families in one home. People, I don't know if they're still in tents or not. God forbid if they are. So there's no really hard number. And somebody who put all this together when I was doing my research said 15 to 20,000 people are homeless. And then they said, just for perspective, because it hit the other side of our state pretty hard as well, they're saying that right now there's 47,000, well, as of March 10th, 47,000 Floridians in hotels that are being paid for by the TSA. And that suggests, somewhere around, I think they said 20,000 homes. These are all just estimates, though. This seems like a really big number, though, all these months later. I know there's a big delay because of the Biden, at FEMA, their nose up.
Chris, just to clear up some confusion here, TSA is a FEMA program called Transitional Sheltering Assistance.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, because FEMA's the only one that does that, but I was sitting here scratching my head, and I'm not on my computer right now, so I'm just listening, going, that don't make a lick of sense. Okay.
That would explain it. Thank you, Stu. Jeez, I appreciate that.
That's why he makes the big bucks.
I guess so. So, Doc, I'm pretty sure I know what your reaction is going to be, but I put it in the sit rep, and I'm going to ask it anyway. What was your reaction when that rogue person at USAID stroked the check for $56 million for 1 week's hotel stays for illegals in New York City?
My reaction exactly like this. I picked up the phone. I called Cameron Hamilton. He's the current interim director for the FEMA.
I've met him.
And I said, hey, bro, WTF, right? And he said, I'm on it. I'm on it. People's heads are going to roll. And they did. They fired 4 people immediately. I believe some of them are looking at getting charges put on them because it was completely not in line with what FEMA was supposed to be doing. They have nothing to do with resettlement. You know, I mean, I get it. You know, resettlement for disaster, but not for that. So that was pulled. The money actually came back. The person that actually wrote the check, the chief financial officer, she was fired immediately, and I don't know if she has charges on her. I don't follow that, but I do know that Cameron's a man of his word, and I've put him in contact with numerous people over there, which then takes us off the playing field. We don't have to be there now because they're talking directly to him, so he knows them on a first name basis. The 6 figures and 6 people, 6 entities that are out there that are running probably the most serious distribution centers. One of them out of a private airport, and others in the area. They were effective, so effective enough. And one builder that was out there under Samaritan's Purse, they were, a subcontractor under them. They were actually building homes for people. So they were taking, claims essentially and saying, okay, what do you need done? And they had a certain pot and they were working that. So he's talking to them directly. That takes us off of that, allows us to go do what we do.
So just in case our audience has forgotten, Cameron has been on Survival Dispatch News a couple times. We had him on as part of Bill Brown's group of SEALs that worked very, very hard to get Pete Hegseth confirmed. And yeah, Cameron's a great guy, absolutely great guy. Yeah. And I'm not surprised that you called him, by the way.
Yeah, so, I was like, what is going on? Yeah.
All right. So I think that wraps up all of our updates, Doc, that we had on tap. Is there anything else you want to share other than I'm going to share this anyway? And it's
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you something, with regard to the way I think about things now. We've had a huge paradigm shift over the last 3 months as to how a very small element can actually make such a big splash. And when we did that, we started going through some training with a guy out of, I believe he's out of Atlanta or maybe Tennessee, Atlanta border. So up there that way. The dude is a former agency guy who did conflict resolution in the Middle East with different tribal members in mostly the Middle East and North Africa to stop the slaughter of Christians, essentially. That's some ballsy work, right? Going out there as a singleton operator, maybe a small group, and doing this stuff. And I just caught wind of the guy, and I'm like, I heard about him when I was in North Africa, so I had to get a hold of him, and I did. A guy named Jamie Winship, great man, runs this course. So our guys are going through the course, and while we're going through it, we're only about 2/3 of the way through. We just had this paradigm shift of kind of the old Army adage where they used to tell us, work smarter, not harder. I'm like, right. But I like sledgehammers, boss. I like digging holes. No, you don't have to, right? And so I looked at it and I said, it's paralleling what I did before in these different, very, very, I've never lived in the box, right? We hear that, analogy, get out of the box. I've never lived in the box, so I don't understand that place. But I can say that, but thinking this way, that's why they hire, more artistically brained people to become Green Berets, but they're also as close as you can get to a criminal without being pathologic. I want to say that it is a paradigm shift for us in that we're doing a first proof of concept down on the border in one of the border towns, and we're seeing neighborhoods literally change. The atmospherics in the neighborhoods with regard to interacting with cartel members. So we're gonna wait to make sure that we measure 3 times on this one before we start talking about it. But once we complete that first mission in this one border town, and then we can take it, because I'm going to meet with some folks up in DC on this, and hopefully we can actually move really fast and change a lot more, without having to commit the types of things that we, forces or, mission sets that are a little more precarious when it comes to lead flying, because we don't really have the ability to do that, and the authorities. Authorities are the key. We would love to just go and say, let's go kid up and attack the cartel del Noreste, but it ain't going to happen. I would love to, be honest with you, I'd love to, but just ain't going to happen. So that's on the horizon. Matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with a guy named Ron Paul. You've probably heard of him. He's going to be down in Houston. So we've got a meeting with him tomorrow on some of this kind of stuff. And it's really, they just want me to talk about, once again, the border stuff, but to bring in that aspect. So we're making, we're making a little splash in the pond, and obviously people are paying attention when they're calling you and asking you to come and sit at a table. So I'm blessed that we've been able to do that, and we'll just keep rocking it. So that's really the newest update as of like the last 3 months for us.
Hey, Doc, could you answer a question for one of our audience members? Have you heard anything about this Epic City, supposedly this
Yes,
exclusively Islamic city center going up? Is that
absolutely.
actually
Yeah,
going up?
up there by Dallas.
I thought Sharia was unlawful in Texas.
It is. It is. It is in the sense that you can't supersede any other laws, and that's what some of the rhetoric that's coming out of their mouths is. And they also, exclusively Sharia-based Muslims that want that in this country, to have a neighborhood that just does that and then enforce, much like we call it an incorporated city. Say, well, we're going to have our own incorporated city, and we're going to have our own laws, and we're going to then do that. So I know that Ken Paxton is on that. I don't follow that line right now. I'm not working on that, but I'm paying attention to it because it could become another problem set for us in Texas. But we haven't been asked to do anything, but I am very much aware of it, and it is a problem set because it is illegal, and it's going to really show true colors of some of our legislators if they allow this. Texas is a rhino controlled state level House and Senate. It's rhino controlled. It just is unfortunate, but you'd think that the state that had won by 13 points on the Trump side of the House would not be that way. But for whatever reason, Austin is controlled by those knuckleheads.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. Exactly. Yeah. It's travesty. Because the real Texans wouldn't put up with it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Appreciate it all, Doc. Okay. Well, appreciate your time and your answers very much, Doc. We're going to play.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to see you, S2. It was a nice surprise to see you pop in there.
Well, you take care, buddy.
Yes, sir. You too.
We've got a short message from Sawyer Products, and S2 and I will be back with Chapter 2 in about 30 seconds.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
All right, so we're back for Chapter 2 here, and Google Chrome is taking a crap on me, and it's throwing an error when I try to access anything on X. So I had to queue up a bunch of stuff in a different web browser in Firefox. So it'll take a second longer to be able to share stuff because I got to go from one window to another here. But let's get started with that. So
sounds like it's time to whip out the old Windows computer and put some Brave on it, or a Linux box.
No, I'm sitting working on a $6,000 MacBook Pro that's got absolutely huge horsepower. Anyway, moving on from there. So this is some really interesting stuff. I don't know if you caught this or not. S2, but Chief Justice John Roberts caught in secretive invite-only club for elite judges and lawyers. That includes James Boasberg, Beryl Howell, Emmett Mitha, Ketanji Brown Jackson, a whole bunch of them. Did you hear about this yet, S2?
Oh yeah, and I got some comments on this when you're done.
Let her rip. Take it away.
So it turns out that the leverage that was gained on Roberts years ago with Obama and Clapper and Brennan,
Okay.
turns out that the two children that him and his wife Jane adopted were from Ireland. So there's two things wrong with this. One, Ireland does not allow out of country adoptions. That's number one. Number two,
Okay.
Ireland also at the time didn't allow abortions. So they brought the two children over here. They did this, I guess, when they were about in their late 30s, maybe, or they're getting up to about their 40s. And I guess they were kind of set up by this agency because they don't allow any agencies for out of country adoptions in Ireland either. So they were set up by some kind of outside agency that I'm guessing was probably connected to Obama, and they adopted their children through that agency. And Obama and Clapper knew about it, so they used this leverage against him, and that's why he's been voting the way he's been voting and taking his stances on things that he's been standing on. He's compromised 100%.
Yeah, and we've known that he's been compromised in some way, some fashion, but that's interesting that you've got some additional details on that. It looks like the Gateway pundit were the ones who broke this story, by the way, and I'll just read a little bit out of it here. So, investigative journalist Bad Kitty unleashed report on Thursday that Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts is involved in an invite-only club for elite judges in Washington, D.C. The elitist club, America Inns of Court, also includes radical America-hating judges James Boasberg, Beryl Howell, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Amit Mehta, all hard left judges and Trump haters. John Roberts has been Chief Justice of the Supreme Court since September 2005. These are all the people that are part of this organization. The Supreme Court Justice is holding meetings with far left district judges who are running a judicial coup on the current president of the United States. Just think, 2 days ago on Tuesday, 3 days ago now, Chief Justice Roberts released a statement attacking President Donald Trump for calling on these same crooked district judges to be impeached. And now we have evidence that John Roberts was in an elitist group with these judges. Here's what Roberts said to the U.S. president, who is under siege by the judicial branch. For more than 2 centuries, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. So Bad Kitty unleashed the following on X. So who all is linked to this selective and secretive club, and recall all of their negative Trump rulings. So the names of the judges I've already mentioned, but the list also includes some of the most soulless and vicious judges in DC District Court. Wasn't it something else that Judge John Roberts broke ethical conduct and stuck up for his brother Boasberg? George Soros has funded a fellowship at Middle Temple where John Roberts is a master of the bench. First, let me quickly explain how this secret society called the American Inns of Court came about. In the UK, they have 4 Inns of Court that date back hundreds of years. One of those is called Middle Temple. See Robert's photo. Well, the US created the American version of this in recent decades. There's a massive list of branches. The branch many of our judges belong to is the Edward Bennett Williams Inn of Court. It's so secretive, they deleted most of this branch from their website, although they still meet. Now here's Judge Beryl Howell. She was nominated by President Judge Boasberg and VP Ketanji Brown. So Boasberg's the president of this organization. Ketanji Brown is the VP. Approved of her nomination. Boasberg claims it was her work on January 6th that contributed to his choosing her for the American Inns of Court Professionalism Award. Let me show you how the scant meeting info that I found, which is included in the DOJ and Inspector General Horowitz, that I found, which included the DOJ and Inspector General Horowitz in attendance. The Edward Bennett Williams Inn of Court custody, current status of board, blah, 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 blah. Joel Sickler invited panelists at EBW in of court. The meeting held in the District of Columbia, Court Judge Amit Mehta. In addition to panelists, approximately 150 lawyers, including federal district judges, were also present. The panel was presented primarily with Michael Horowitz, DOJ Inspector General, and Seth Eichenholz, Deputy Assistant Attorney General, also featuring Vanessa Rojas, a returning citizen with direct and learned perspective regarding constructive reforms within the Bureau of Prisons. And it goes on and on and on to describe this secretive organization. So, S2, I'm not sure if you caught this or not, but somebody put the numbers out there today, and it made for put a really fine point on things. So far, there have been 16 federal judge, what do you call them? Motions against Donald Trump. 16 in the first 2 months of his
Injunctions.
Injunctions. Thank you. Golly, I didn't write it down with my pen. Gone. My sometimers is acting up. So 16 in 2 months. And that is equal to the total number during Biden's whole term and is in the ballpark with Obama's term. I want to say Obama was 14 or something like that. So
combined with Trump's first term, there's been 64 injunctions.
And if you extrapolate it out with the 16 over 2 months, they're on pace to have approximately 400 injunctions against Trump. So the mask is off now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts that this is the Democrat plan to gum up the works, right? It consumes bandwidth. It slows Trump down, potentially derails a bunch of his stuff. I mentioned this earlier this week, but I got to mention it again because it's turning into a pet peeve for me. So we are not going to be removing any federal judges from the bench through the impeachment process. People have got to get off of that. So an impeachment is just like it's egg on your face, and it's a 50+1 in the House to get an impeachment, but that doesn't take them off the bench. Then the vote goes to the Senate as to whether or not they're going to convict on the impeachment, which is how you remove a judge from the bench, and it requires a 2/3 supermajority. So if all 100 senators show up, you have to have 67 people in favor of taking that federal judge off the bench. That is not going to happen. Doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell. For perspective, since 1789, 15 federal judges have been impeached, 7 of them removed from the bench. We are not going to remove, there's 500 federal judges, by the way. We're not going to remove even a small fraction of that vis-a-vis the impeachment process. It's a complete waste of time other than giving them a black eye. The way that we have to go about this, and most people think that the courts fall underneath SCOTUS, and they don't. And also this Boasberg guy, by the way, I'm sure you got this, S2, has multiple times said, well, as a co-equal branch of government, I have a right to this, that, and the other thing. They're not equal. 4 times in the Constitution, it describes the lower court judges and courts as being inferior, number 1. Number 2, they do not fall under the Supreme Court. They fall under Congress. They are a construct of Congress. And Congress can therefore pass legislation which dictates what the parameters are that they have to operate within. So there's legislation being drafted right now by Mike Davis that will essentially say, if you are a federal judge, one of these 500 judges, many of whom are hardcore Democrats now, by the way, that you cannot issue injunctions based on the entire country. You do not have the power of the president. You have no right to put national injunctions in place. So if somebody, whoever the plaintiff is, or if the judge decides to pass it on to another level, there will be a tribunal of senior judges that will determine whether or not the injunction is constitutional or not. Then what's happening right now with these activist judges, they're making their own laws, essentially. They're saying, I don't care what Article 2 says, that it gives the president, the executive, all these powers. We're going to make sure that the interpretation is not favorable to Donald Trump's agenda. So we have the horsepower in the Congress and the Senate to get this type of legislation through. At that point in time, it stops these activist judges dead in their tracks. Don't think for a minute that Donald Trump doesn't have the smartest minds working on this. This is not going to be allowed to carry on much longer. So I don't know if you want to tack anything onto that or not, as to, but if you do, go ahead.
Yeah, I absolutely do. So it's odd. It's very odd. But the only guy that has ever picked up on anything that I've been saying out there for a while now, he's the only one that has said we need to defund these districts. And guess who that is? It's Chip Roy.
Oh
He's
my
the
God.
he's the only one that's been saying it. And I've been out there for all week long
Yeah.
telling everybody, cut it with the impeachment bullshit. That's not going to happen. Stop
Exactly.
using that word. It's not going to happen. The only way to, if you want to stop this, their idea is they want to delay. A delay is a denial. Okay. The only way to stop this in the short term is to defund these judges. They still have to have their money to function. So, but if you defund them or you just get rid of their district altogether, then that is the way, that's the short stopgap in all of this that I see. And then go investigate them and their families and backgrounds and audit every single one of them and the NGOs that they're attached to. You want to make them fill their drawers? That'll be the way to do it.
Yeah, that's well said, S2. It's I'm just getting maybe I'm just getting a little bit upset about the fact that people keep bringing this up over.
No, I've been on this thing all week long, and it's just like, just shut up. And I mean, even all of the guys that got swatted out there, they're still on that gravy train, and it's just like, shut up.
Yeah, no, trust me, I get it. I started posting on X on this last week and just trying to get some. It's easy to acquire knowledge, but this whole impeachment thing it's a nothing burger. It ain't gonna happen.
It's bad optics. Because number one, if they were to do that, they're going to play right into the hands of the Democrat talking points of these are just fascists up there. They're fascist, communist, socialist, whatever. And then you become no better than the other side. So it's just bad optics.
It is. It's a distraction at the end of the day. Like, people are wasting a lot of time and bandwidth on it when it's not going anywhere. So
exactly.
All right, we'll move on from there. So this is from Congressman Brandon Gill. Activist judges know that even if their rulings get overturned on appeal, the process could take months or years, burning away valuable time from Trump's presidency, stopping him from executing on the mandate voters gave him. Left unchecked, the process itself is the judicial coup. That's why the Supreme Court must step in and Congress must act now. Well, let's talk Supreme Court for a minute. The rumor is that Amy Coney Barrett, when Judge Kavanaugh's home was besieged by Antifa and other demonstrators, that a conversation was held with her, and she was threatened, and her family was threatened if she didn't go along with the cabal, for lack of a better term. And if you didn't see her disdain for Trump when they locked eyes after the State of the Union, not State of the Union, whatever you want to call it, on January 20th, she's lost. And we've known Roberts has been lost for a long time. We don't have a Supreme Court that we can count on. And that means that we need congressional action. We have to get legislation passed to codify this into law. And otherwise, we're going to accomplish very little in this term.
Well, Brandon Gill and his band of idiots out there are the ones that have been pushing the whole impeachment thing. So
yeah, I saw it.
And I'm just like, if you're going to do something, do it and stop fucking talking about it. Sorry.
No, you're good. All good. So next one up, still on this topic, Trump demands Supreme Court step in after federal judges block his agenda. These people are lunatics. When Jefferson became president, they had problems with judges. They just eliminated these judgeships that they had problems with. They didn't even bother. Are we ruled by the consent of the government under elections and under written constitution, or are we ruled by a district judge in DC, Hawaii, wherever the hell they can shop for a judge to find somebody, and then that's trumps everything that is in the Constitution? in terms of executive powers, because that's what they'll keep doing if you let that happen. And that's from Ron DeSantis.
Well, that's another piece of something that Mike Davis has been putting together too. Part of that legislation is you don't get to go choose the judge you want. It ends up wherever it ends up. And I think what he's really trying to do is specify wherever the event happened is the district that it is dealt with in.
So we mentioned this, I don't know when, recently on one of our podcasts, that there's a Latin word, setus, setus, and it means to determine where we sit. And it is a basic tenet of our legal system. So in other words, let's say you get in a wreck in Georgia and you're not at fault, the other person's at fault, and you're going to sue them. You can't sue them in Florida or North Carolina, South Carolina, wherever you live. The jurisdiction where the crime happened determines where you sit vis-a-vis the concept of setus. So you're absolutely right, S2. I mean, it's insanity.
That's the way it works at the local levels right now as it stands. That's exactly the way it works at the local levels.
Yeah. So anyway, this is the article from the Geller report that speaks to everything I just read off for Donald Trump. But did you all know Boasberg, same dickhead that blocked deportation flights targeting Venezuelan gang members and was appointed by President Obama in 2011, was tapped by Roberts in 2014 to serve on the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISA. So this rabbit hole gets deeper, and I know you know this, S2, but for our audience, this asshole, or dickhead, as Salty Goat calls him, was one of the judges who awarded all kinds of warrants through the FISA system. So nobody there on the defense side is even aware of these secret hearings, to have warrants based on the Steele dossier, which is a complete pile of shit manufactured by Hillary Clinton's campaign. And then they went and executed these warrants on Trump allies and Trump himself. This guy is the guy behind it, Boasberg. It's unbelievable. The rest of this is pretty repetitive, I think. A secretive anti-Trump club. Here's another one. Let me see. Yeah, so Rep. Brandon Gill ignores Chief Justice John Roberts, moves to impeach Judge Boasberg, as you just mentioned, S2. That's just political theater. There's nothing comes out of it. You are not getting a federal judge removed from the bench with a fucking impeachment. 67 votes in the Senate ain't gonna happen.
Defunding only takes 51.
Right. So anyway, I think, yeah, that's the last one on that particular topic. So the next one, I don't know if you caught this or not, S2. I laughed when I saw it. Breaking news. Joe and Jill Biden want back into politics, according to NBC. Biden plans
the one. Sorry. Go ahead and finish it.
Well, Biden plans to campaign and do anything else necessary to save the Democratic Party during the second Trump era. He privately met with the DNC's new chair, and then Jill Biden is reportedly urging Joe Biden to make a bid for the 2028 Democrat nomination, believing he can mount a Trump-style comeback.
What, are they going to put a mask on Jill and put her up there as Joe?
I don't know, but I mean, the guy shits his pants on a regular basis, and he's supposed to be.
I doubt he makes it. I doubt he makes it another 5 years.
Oh, I mean, here's the thing: is when the brain checks out, the body isn't far behind it, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, somebody who gets really ill, you know this, S2, if they maintain a positive mindset, their chances of survival are much greater than if they just like, oh, fuck it, I'm done anyway. Well, that's what will happen. You are what you think. And that's why Alzheimer's is so bad as far as leading to death as a contributing factor. Once the mind checks out, the body follows it. And
Yeah, I've seen it personally in my life twice. So it's generally about, I don't know how far along he is, but if he's as far along as I think he is, he's probably got about 5 more years, and there's nothing they can do to cure it.
yeah, so my stepfather had Alzheimer's. His father lived to be 99 years old, drank a fifth of whiskey and smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And my stepfather's sister, I don't know, when their father was like 95 or something, she tried to take away his cigarettes and his booze. And he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I've been doing this since I was a kid. You think I'm going to stop and save my life
Well,
now?"
there's
And
hope for me yet.
yeah. And so my mother's, ex-husband, well, she's a widow. When he got Alzheimer's, we just attributed his forgetfulness to just, getting older, right? We didn't realize that he had dementia. And it was explained at the time that people who have Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia, they go through this phase. Sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's years, where they've got 1 foot in reality and 1 foot in la la land. And they're mad as hell because they still have enough lucidity to realize that. But once they transition 100% into la la land and they lose their will to live, poof, they're gone. So the day that he died, I had ridden my motorcycle by myself over to this home that he was in, and he had 1 gray hair on his head. The rest of his hair was jet black, didn't have a wrinkle on his face. And we always thought he'd be like his father and live to be 100. And I can't remember, it's either 77 or 78 years old when he passed away, and it was 100% the result of his brain checking out. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but for people who are dealing with this stuff, it's brutal. And Joe Biden is not going to be president again, no matter how much they try to cheat. All right, next one up. This one is just the Department of Insanity. By the way, as to quick question, what do you think of all these washed up has-been TV people and politicians starting podcasts because Trump kicked their ass by leveraging podcasts with, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, that kind of stuff? Now they all have their own podcast and they all suck so bad. It's just unbelievable.
Well, they're doing I said this a couple episodes ago. It took them a while after they figured out that they lost, and there was nothing that they could do to refute that. So now what they're doing is they're just copying what Trump did and thinks that they're going to be able to pull this off, and they're just failing abysmally at this. I mean, did you see the last one with Michelle Obama and the haircut? She looked like the dude from Menace from South Central.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Looked like she had 3 handles on her head.
As I said, she looked like the dude from Menace from South Central. You remember that movie?
Yes.
The guy had the 3 spikes coming out of his head.
Honestly, the part that was in addition to that, so
McCan't podcast.
yeah. So for those of you who follow us on a regular basis, you know that I'm not only surrounded by 4 screens in front of me here, but there's also screens over here on the other side, and we broadcast to 8 different platforms simultaneously. I monitor them all, and YouTube has been on a tear for censoring people. And Robert Larson posted "retard finder on tilt" on YouTube, and they held the message. I have to approve the message. So
Prove it.
Yeah, don't say I just approved it, but don't say the word retard, or YouTube will put you in the penalty box for a couple minutes. Anyway, the part of with the Michelle Obama and her brother, they had this long conversation on whether or not a hamburger was a sandwich. I shit you not. And I'm listening to it thinking, these people are fucking delusional.
Those are the things people really want to know about.
They started out by saying, well, it's pretty common when somebody sees somebody of note, like us. Somebody, by the way, counted how many times she said "I" and "me" in one of her podcasts, and the number was off the chain. I can't remember exactly what it was. So anyway, she says, people of note, like me, that they want to know what our opinions are on things, and they want our input. And so that's why we called it IMO, in my opinion. I'm here to offer you my opinion and stuff.
I think they figured out campaigning from the basement doesn't work.
They're so far out of touch, man. It's just ridiculous. So also Don Lemon, paging at fag alerts. That's the one who's up and coming behind Retard Finder, by the way. That's at fag_alerts on X. Don Lemon is so shitty, and Joy Reid is no better. And now you got to listen to this. We need to stop all attacks on Canada, like economic attacks or tariffs or anything like that. Otherwise, we're going to lose in a kinetic war to them. I shit you not. Listen to this.
Grampy Trump, let's talk. Let's talk. First of all, you can't make Canada the 51st state without going to war with them. And let me explain how that happened, how that worked out the last time we tried to go to war with Canada. They burned the White House to the ground in 1814 and won the war. Canada beat us in the War of 1812. They probably like their chances against us. We're not going to beat them in a war because we have never been able to do that. You'd have to occupy a country that is equivalent of the size of the United States, in which the top 2/3 of it is uninhabited, frozen forest land that touches the Arctic. You know how that worked out when the Nazis tried that with Russia, which is the equivalent of Canada on that part of the world? We gonna lose. We don't have enough troops to occupy. They are a country of 39 million people who have about as many guns per capita as we do.
No, they don't.
It's not even fucking close. Like,
they have a ban on guns.
No, yeah, exactly. They took all the guns away from them. I mean, it's getting down to even bolt action rifles are a problem now, and shotguns and stuff. But you can't.
And I got news for her. The War of 1812 wasn't between us and Canada. It was between us and Britain.
Right. And Canada didn't even exist, by the way. It was a British colony at the time. So
I think she needs to stop dyeing her hair because I think that shit's getting into her head.
But here's the crazy thing about this is that there are sheeple out there who will believe this crap. I don't know if you want to do a quick look up as to, I'd be curious how many active duty military people there are in Canada, but it ain't very much, and they sure as hell don't have our tech.
They don't have our tactical equipment.
Correct.
They don't have as many ships as we have. They don't have as many people in active duty. They just don't have the resources that it takes to get it done. Period.
And they sure as hell don't have anything like this, which has reportedly been flying for over 5 years now, but was just announced by Trump yesterday, the F-47, which they're saying is virtually indetectable by any radar system out there. They created a special engine for these things where they can cruise at like Mach 2 and Mach 3 with no afterburners, which keeps them really well hidden. And I can't remember what they top out at, but it's hypersonic levels, like 6, 7, Mach 6, 7, or 8 or something like that. And the weapons system.
Wonder if that's that gravitic propulsion system.
I don't think so, because I watched like an engineering cutaway of how the engine worked, and it's actually 2 engines in one. But the big deal is they found a way to go supersonic without afterburners, which also has the effect of increasing the range as far as how far they can travel on their fuel supply. This is a 6th generation fighter. You know, China's got some 5th generation stuff that reportedly is just not up to par. And this stuff, it's go time for the F-47.
Well, this is our 6th gen, which means that if it's 6th gen, we never saw 5th gen.
Well, true. Fair enough. I think they want to count all the different iterations of the F-22 from beginning to what we've got right now.
The F-35, they're making a big jump from F-35 to F-47.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, huge.
I think there were iterations in between that we never saw, and they just made the jump to 6th gen.
Yeah, could be. It's interesting stuff. So it's too bad we don't have John on with us tonight. Illinois bill would let failing school systems send homeschooling parents to jail. Not a single student can do math at grade level in 53 Illinois schools. Not a single student can read at grade level in 30 Illinois schools. The Democrat solution, jail parents who want better for their children.
Oh, and those numbers there, they're not talking about individual schools. They're talking about districts.
Wow. I didn't catch that. That's amazing. It just makes you shake your head. Anyway, moving on to the next one here. So according to Keir Starmer, Islamophobia is the greatest threat to democracy and Britain's #1 priority to deal with besides Russia. This guy's like on a crash course to destroy his country. He's got one of the most punchable faces I've ever seen in my life. Listen to this crap.
What is Labour's views about the Islamophobia and controlling the Islamophobia in Britain and Europe?
We have to defeat Islamophobia. We have to be honest enough to accept that it's on the rise in its spikes. And we have to speak with one voice in condemning that and taking effective action in relation to it. So we join together, we acknowledge the problem of Islamophobia and how widespread it is, but we are absolutely resolute in our commitment to defeat it.
What do you think that when we talk about Islamophobia, there is a rise in hate crime as well?
Yeah.
So what is your policy?
I spent 5 years of my life as the Director of Public Prosecutions trying to tackle hate crime, including Islamophobia. And that means making sure that everybody realizes it's a crime, making sure everybody's committed to dealing with it, and that the criminal justice system is geared up to prosecute cases properly so that people know there's a consequence if they engage in hate crime. And I did that for 5 years. I fundamentally believe in it. We've all got to step up to the plate here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keir Starmer, and really it's a pleasure, and we really welcome you again here and enjoy your visit here.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank
you.
I don't know. You want to add anything to this clown, dude?
What a fucking pasty white kook. Their biggest problem that they have over there is the fact that they have bowed the knee to being politically correct and not being able to talk about the things that they need to talk about over there, which is one of those things. And if you wanted to stop Islamophobia in Britain, kick out the fucking illegals that are gang raping all of the girls.
Oh,
You
that's
wanna
just
stop
that's
that?
just a
That's how you-
conspiracy theory. That's just a conspiracy theory.
Well, yeah, since 1970s, it's been a conspiracy theory.
Oh, too funny. All right, next one up. Again, I apologize for the manner that I'm sharing this with, but like I say, Google Chrome. If I close Chrome, it's going to take our podcast offline, so I got to bridge it with Firefox here. So this is a clip that mainstream media definitely hasn't been playing, and they don't want you to see it.
The two astronauts that you just helped save from space, they didn't get any overtime.
Shoot. Sorry.
$5 a day per diem for 286 days. That is $1,430 in extra pay. Is there anything the administration can do to get them to make them whole?
Well, nobody's ever mentioned this to me. If I have to, I'll pay it out of my own pocket. Okay, I'll get it for you.
The two astronauts.
Comments on that? I'll pay them out of my own pocket for 9 months.
I wasn't sure what he was talking about, to be honest with you.
They were paid $5 per diem per day to be up there for 9 months. That's $1,400 and no other compensation. So no income coming in. And basically,
well, fuck it. If Trump wants to pay him, go ahead. He's got the cash.
yeah, well, basically saying if you know, whatever entity they fall under doesn't pay them, that he will.
I have something I'd like to shout out here real quick, Chris. And if you don't mind, I'm going to use you as an intermediary here. T-Bowie 13. I want to know where you live and where that school is. I know some people that I can get in touch with that we can take care of that problem. Send a note to Chris Heaven at Survival Dispatch. Wait a minute, what is it?
No,
support at survivaldispatch.com.
And anybody in the audience who ever wants to get through to me, just send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com. Anyway, I believe we have one more video here, and it's a good one to wrap up chapter 2. I'm going to play it. We'll have commentary after that S2, and then because of this Chrome problem, I can't queue anything up for chapter 3 without it being on my screen while I'm doing it. So what I'm going to do is after this video, I'm going to show you all a video on Zelensky that is 1 minute and 19 seconds long. And while that's playing, I'll get everything together for chapter 3. So don't leave when it plays. Just hang out. We got lots of funny stuff. Anyway, here we go. This is in regards, again, to Chief Roberts, piece of crap, who's pushing back against Donald Trump's demand to impeach Judge James Boasberg. Why was he silent when Trump's home was raided? Trump's name was being removed from the ballot. Trump was almost killed. Trump was on trial for bogus charges. Good questions.
So Justice Roberts with a big mouth now, but you know what's funny? He didn't have a big mouth when President Donald Trump's home was getting raided because the Department of Justice was being weaponized. He didn't have a big mouth then. He didn't have a big mouth when they were trying to take President Donald Trump's name off of the ballot in certain states, right? He didn't have a big mouth when President Donald Trump was almost wiped out twice, right? Once on live TV. He didn't have a big mouth when they tried to pin these bogus charges on him in all these different court cases. He didn't have a big mouth about that, right? But all of a sudden now he says, oh, President Trump shouldn't be calling for impeachment over this judge that's absolutely unhinged and is in there just to spite President Donald Trump, and it's going to put American citizens in danger. If Justice Roberts had to have these Tren de Agua and these different gang members living in his neighborhood, you think he would go for it? You think he would keep his family there? Not in a million years. There's no way in the world he would make sure they get out of there, just like Martha's Vineyard. If Justice Roberts lived in a neighborhood which was like Martha's Vineyard and the immigrants came rolling in, they would go rolling out just as fast as they came in. They would not stand for it. Neither should you. And this judge should be impeached. Bravo to Brandon Gill for putting in the articles of impeachment.
Yeah, well, we know the impeachment's going nowhere, but besides that he's got valid questions of asking why Chief John Roberts didn't give a shit when any of this other stuff was going on. Do you want to add to that, S2?
My message to John Roberts is you are compromised and it is causing you to do immoral things and you should resign.
That's good advice. And I'm pretty sure most of America would agree with that. Okay, y'all. Look, we're going to take 1 minute, 19 seconds to watch this Zelensky video. And then S2 and I will be back with chapter 3, bunch of zany stuff, crazy, funny, interesting stuff. Make sure your health insurance for therapy is up to date because crazy stuff happens.
No,
I'm giving you fair warning right now. And if you don't have good health insurance for therapy, we get a group discount at Survival Dispatch, and you're welcome to join the crew. Anyway.
Called the Signal Channel.
You're not supposed to let the cat out of the bag. All right, we will be right back.
That was so disrespectful to Duran Duran to choose that soundtrack.
Wasn't it? Well, anyway, it is what it is. So I didn't have a chance to get them all completely queued up, but we'll roll with what we've got. I'll have to rewind some videos because as soon as I hit a certain page, it's going to start playing. So first one up here, and this is called Thanks Champ. So This is from an ex-boyfriend to an ex-girlfriend named Sarah. Hey, Sarah, you're probably still asleep. Feels weird to text you since we broke up, but I got to tell you something. Her new boyfriend replies, hey, Sarah's still sleeping. Gave her a wild night. What do you want me to tell her, loser? Tell her my HIV test came back positive. Thanks, champ. All right. We're coming out hard. Oh my God. All right. Next one up. This is hilarious. Woman falls on her face after trying to grab a MAGA hat from a man's head in New York, screeching, he's racist. This is some funny shit. This is the birth of a meme, by the way.
I saw this today and I thought it was parody.
That's why he won. That is why he won. People like you. Bro, this is like, chill, bro. Oh, bro, how can I be racist? If you fucking love your child, I'm racist. He's a racist. How can I be racist? No, he's not racist. Nothing funny to do. I'm educated. Oh, are you? I never heard of only the Democrats are in the since who knows how long, but then Trump comes in and well, this is my stuff. I hope you enjoy
Face plant.
And did you see the guy? Hey,
Turner. Yeah, I saw it.
Did you see it? I got to show this to everybody. So she does the face plant. Let me back up here. Another guy is running behind them, stops, puts a camera right in her face to get a picture. So, here we go again.
I saw all of the other ones before I saw this one, and I thought that it was just parody or something. And then when I saw this, it's like, oh, it was actually real.
Yeah. So watch this second guy briefly stop to get a picture of her. It's hilarious. Here it comes. That is some funny shit right there.
That'll be up on Twitter soon.
Oh yeah. Liberal TDS sufferer admits it's not safe for Trump supporters because of how angry they are about the election. Really. We can laugh, but think about all the violence we've been seeing. This is a serious psychological phenomenon we are witnessing. Mass psychosis with hate injected. It was posted today, so I don't know why we're all mad about the election, but nobody sane is mad about the election, but this is a short one.
Because I'm not safe. It's not safe for me to be around you guys. It's not safe for you. None of you. If you see my face and know me, I had to quit my job because I was going to come after you. I could not trust myself not to hurt you.
And that is the face of insanity right there. All right. This here is a problem. This is the state of our military. These are 3 female MAs, Navy MPs. Picture was taken right after they got out of a Navy law enforcement vehicle. Massive change in the military is required to end this nonsense. Posted by Colonel Douglas McGregor, by the way, that Doc Pete mentioned.
Well, but they're making the right decision. They're going to Subway. It worked for Jared. Maybe it'll work for them.
Yeah. I'm not going to make fun of these ladies, but what I am going to say is that if you cannot pass the requirements, the physical requirements for any position, I don't care who you are, what color your skin is, what sex you shouldn't be doing it. There isn't one of those 3 that's military police that would stand a chance against, I don't know, a very unathletic male, put it that way. This
might sit on them.
Yeah. All right. Next one up from the school from the School of Insanity here. I have another one. 12 seconds, by the way. She has a message.
I just realized something. I'm officially the blue-haired bisexual one in the friend group who lives off of coffee and black clothing. The prophecy has been completed. I just realized something. I'm officially the blue-haired bisexual one in the friend group who lives off of coffee and black clothing.
Oh my God.
Precious, my precious.
I don't know what else to say other than, oh my God.
Robert Larson, what the hell, Chris?
Hang tight, Robert. We're just getting started. Somebody on YouTube, I can't read that far. Hey, Chris S2, thanks for getting truth out there. Talk to my wife, find out names and so on. I can't read the person's handle though; it's blurry for some reason, and I'm kind of
13.
All right, T-Boy 13. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, moving on. So this is the way. This is in Florida, by the way.
This is good. This is so good.
Showed up and dragged to school the Florida Senate. Yeah, not. So let me back this up.
Hi, Randy. I believe you know me. I'm Erica Peace.
I have no idea who you are. So. Erica.
Pageantry.
Erica PC.
Drag.
Is that PC's your legal name? We have to put it in here.
Yes.
That's your legal name? Okay. Erica PC, you're recognized.
Yeah. So I am from Tampa, Florida. I'm here to school you again.
All right, you're done. Let's go next.
Really?
Yep. Come on, next.
Oh.
Come on, let's go. Whoever. Got a lot to do. No time for nonsense.
Hi, Randy. I believe.
There you go. Shut them down.
Yeah. All right. So I'm forewarning all of you that this next stretch here, I warned you that I have been collecting videos of psychotic white liberal women. Well, get ready. Here comes a whole slew of them.
When it happens, what are we going to do about Vance? Somebody needs to think ahead on that. Just think ahead.
All right. That's the first one that should be referred to the FBI.
I'm going to say hello at FBI.
Next one. Again, apologize for having to queue stuff up, but is what it is tonight with Chrome taking a shit.
Playing games with me is silly because I watched you make your first move. And while you were playing checkers, I was playing chess. And by the time you realize that you're beaten, I'm already on playing.
What the fuck is this thing? Anyway.
It's some kind of a nose ring. Every time I see something like that in a girl's nose, I have this urge to walk up to them and say, hey, there's something, you got a booger hanging out of your nose.
Yeah, well, I was actually kind of in the same vein. I think it was like a booger trap or something. I don't know. But
with another opponent, and you're sitting there wondering how I caught the wind of what you were up to. No, man, you played me. I've been studying a long time. I'm really good at this game, but you're a novice, and you should have checked yourself before you wrecked yourself.
What the hell is she talking about?
Honestly, I have no fucking idea.
Sounds like she's talking about her husband or something.
Yeah, maybe. I think I accidentally just closed a tab here, so no, that's not the one. Just bear with me here. This not having everything in one web browser is turning out to be a major pain in the butt. All right, here comes Liawatha, another mentally ill white woman.
What's your reaction to what happened to the Department of Education?
Public education is a critical part, not just of how we build a future, but also of our democracy. I support public education. Ultimately, Donald Trump and Elon Musk do not have the right to shut down the Department of Education. It's created by Congress. Only Congress has that right. But just the very fact that they want to do everything they can to insult public school teachers, to insult public school students, and to insult the communities that depend on and support those public schools is truly despicable.
What's your
280 billion annual budget? 230 billion of it goes strictly to consultants and third parties, has nothing to do with education.
See, I think I've cracked the code on this.
Let her
And what I think happens here is every single one of these departments that they're going to investigate, every single one of these agencies that they investigate, they all seem to have one or two poster children for each one of those departments or each one of those agencies. And I think that that's where their slush fund is, where their own personal slush funds are within those agencies or within those departments.
Yeah, I think you're right. The thought crossed my mind as well.
If you look at who stands up to defend them so vociferously, I bet you that's what the case is.
Yeah, it makes total sense. All right, next crazy lady up here.
Ooh, that's a lady?
So I think it's a meth addict or something like that. That's my best guess.
I am telling you, everybody that's watching my shit, you took the wrong bitch's kid and lied on the wrong bitch. I will get into any fucking thing and embarrass you like you all have me. Especially over my only kid I have left. I'm not lying. I am
Lost her food stamps. She's mad.
Insanity is strong. It's really strong. It's crazy. All right. Next, look at the eyes. The eyes always give it away.
I just want to remind you that if you still support Donald Trump and Elon Musk and you go out of your way to defend them, you truly are a Nazi piece of shit and deserve every fucking bad thing that comes your way. Have a great night.
School teacher.
Completely batshit insane, man. All right, and next one goes without saying that she's batshit insane, but listen to this. 10 seconds.
What does Trump expect? Oh, I believe he expects violence. I believe he expects confrontation. I believe he's working toward a civil war. What?
I believe you think you're Martin Luther King, and guess what? You aren't.
She's Maxine P. Waters.
Oh my God. So yeah, I agree with this guy. Craziest eyes of the week. This is like way over the top.
It sounds to me like old Donald T is slipping in the brain section. It's not sounding too smart. Yeah, if these people is going to go out, these wicked people, they think they're going to take everybody out. They're crazy. They ain't even control this shit no more.
Ooh.
Now I know what the scary mask looks like in live vision.
Yeah, she fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down.
No, that's the Maine governor.
That too. That's a dude. Let's get real here. All right, here's a complete meltdown from another mentally ill creature.
I just need to quickly rant about the fact that everyone around me, like at work, in the grocery store, like everywhere, is coughing, sneezing, like fully ill and fully not wearing a mask and fully not covering their mouth as they sneeze and cough. And it's just so concerning to me. Like, I feel like I'm starting to like become not a germaphobe, but just like so anxious every time someone next to me coughs or sneezes without doing anything. And like, I'm ready to do something about it. Like, I'm ready to be like, what the fuck, bro? Like, I don't know how to approach these conversations with people. Like, I don't know how to be like, hey, can you please like care about my health and not cough and sneeze all over the place? Can you please care about my health? Like, can you please like I can't get sick. I just can't get sick. I can't afford to miss work. I have a trip planned to go visit family. I cannot miss that. Like,
Boy, howdy, did the whole mask thing bring out the lunatics.
Hypoxia. Lack of oxygen to the brain.
There you go. This crazy lady, she posts a lot, and she is like...
Well, that's Jamie Lee Curtis.
No, this isn't Jamie Lee Curtis, but good guess.
Oh, MAGA sheep, you're so naive. You think this is for government waste? No. They're going after hardworking people, the 99%, and firing them because they have a $2 trillion deficit. But guess what? If every rich person paid their fair share of taxes, and I'm not talking about more taxes, their fair share, we would have $1 trillion to go into the budget. But no, they don't want to go there, you suckers. Just wait until they come after your job. Just wait. It'll happen.
They're all nuts, every last one of them. This one is especially.
Here we go.
Yeah. This one, she needs a trip or a visit from the Secret Service for sure.
Listen, someone just needs to do it. Someone just needs to get it done. Someone just needs to do it. And I'm not usually pro doing it, but like someone just needs to do it. Someone needs to get it done.
Get what done?
She's one of the assassinate Trump freaks. I am not playing this entire video. I don't know.
They're gonna sing, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's been an explosion of this kumbaya bullshit recently. Like it's gonna make a difference, other than making normal people look at them and go, "Holy fuck!" They're like batshit insane.
It's coping.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not playing the whole thing. I can't do it.
Somehow become Peter, you, my dear, can do anything.
Yeah, that's enough. All right.
It's the wild witches of the forest.
I'm telling you, they are batshit fucking crazy. Okay, so keeping in line with the theme of this stretch of videos, this dude is included with the women because he clearly has a vagina, and you can see the retard finder found him, so he's fucked. 27 seconds.
I can't stand how cruel and awful men are to women. And honestly, I mean, I think the reason she lost this election is because so many men cannot stand competent women. They can't. It bugs them. They'll say it's the economy. They'll say it's, the working class. It's not. No. It's because men are stupid. All men are stupid, including me. And I recognize that, which is why I want to be a woman. I'm done with this masculinity thing. Men are stupid, and they're the reason the world sucks. Men create all the problems. Thanks.
Not going to change your brain cells, dude.
Yeah. Can you imagine being that mentally ill that you think that Kamala Harris was a good choice? All right, this dude by now really has like a pseudo vagina, whatever, when they turn your dick inside out and shove it up inside. 16 seconds of pure insanity.
Hi, I'm getting bottom surgery in 5 days. And when they do the surgery, they're going to put packing inside to make sure that everything, stays open. And 5 days after the surgery, they're going to remove the packing. And I really want to play this specific song when they're removing the packing so that it'll be like this. It's like a clown, except it's my vagina. Hi, I'm getting bottom surgery.
I have no words for that one.
I have no words either. Oh my God. And here's another dude. This is whatever. It's a fucking weirdo. Footage of a runway shot from Duran Atlantic's fall 2025 show is going viral for its strange taste in fashion that displays a man with massive breasts walking in front of a room full of people.
Will those come with the shopping cart?
The kid's father needs to thump the shit out of him until he gets some sense in his head. And question: what would you do if this man was outside your door?
Call the cops.
So, if this man showed up at your door and you would tell him basically, get the fuck out of here, put a 1 in the live chat. If, on the other hand, you would open the door and shake his hand, put a 2 in the chat. So 1, get the fuck out. 2, Nice to meet you, Mr. Presidential Imposter. And we've got
And
more.
just remember, if you pull them inside, it's legal.
Lower class citizen just got smoked by YouTube for saying nice tits, dude. Approve. Robert Larson called him a chud. He got censored. We're going to show that one as well. Yeah. I don't know what Mark Becker's trying to say. Good to federal prison to you and Mike having problems. Okay, that's a reference, obviously, to Michelle Obama, Michael Obama. Anyway, it looks like the majority of people are putting ones in all of the live chat. So.
Tell him Jennifer will be out in a minute. I kind of jabbed at him yesterday myself. He put up the March Madness bracketing thing yesterday, and I responded to it, and I said, I hear your nuclear family's falling apart. What's it like?
All right. We've only got a couple left here for chapter 3. Would you give up a meal if it meant feeding your dog instead? If you would, put a 1 in the chat. If you wouldn't, you're a piece of shit. Put a 2 in the chat.
I'm holding up one finger, but I don't have a dog.
Yeah.
But I have 2 cats. So
I've got our female rescues at my feet here, little Bailey. She's 11 years old. She just had her knee, ACL, everything rebuilt. So she's not her usual self right now. All right. And the last one of the night, the daughter of the cheetah. This here is something that you don't see every day. You got to admit, that's impressive.
That is impressive. She wanted to win.
Boy, howdy, did she ever. All right. So that is the end of chapter 3. See, it wasn't as bad as y'all thought it was going to be. I mean, it wasn't.
No, you had me scared there for a minute.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the fun sort of thing. So, all right. So we're into homework. What can our audience do in light of the main topic we discussed tonight, which of course were the updates from Doc Pete. And first and foremost, if you can help out his Remnant Ministries, so it's a nonprofit, and they have 3 major lines of effort, which scroll down, you see them right here. So border operations, you could kind of put border operations, deportations together in that bucket now. But when Doc Pete left the Army after 39 years, he immediately went to the border with one of his horses and his dog and gathered intel related to DPS. Child sex trafficking, interdiction, plus his group will help people start new ministries. Doc Pete does some incredible stuff. So when you first get to the page, or actually it's in the header right here, there's a donate button, and you can donate money if that's something you'd like to do. If you don't have money to donate, but you have time, you can help with remote research on the internet, or you can help hands-on in person. Any way to help Doc Pete is a good thing. He's a great man, a great friend, doing great things. The next thing that you can do is you can share this episode of Survival Dispatch News on your socials. We're highly suppressed on a number of platforms because of all the gun content that we put out in the past. And number 3, be skeptical. Just a reminder, be skeptical. Make sure you're consuming content from trustworthy sources. Doc Pete, Todd Callender, right here in Survival Dispatch News. If you're getting your news from legacy media, you need to find what's behind it, because they'll all be repeating the same thing. The Mockingbird media, and yet typically if you follow the money, you'll figure out what's driving it. But such an infinitesimally small amount of information is legit on legacy media these days. You have to come to people like us who spend an immense amount of time studying far left far right, everything in between, going multiple layers deep. I know for a fact, because I wrote a piece of software that does this, that I read somewhere on average 3,000 words a day. S2 is right there as well. You could probably take Jeff MD, S2 of myself, and that's 1 million words a day at least in consuming news. But we've had, what have we had now? 3 or 4 retractions, 3 or 4 in 434 episodes. I think we've had 4 retractions, maybe 3, but maybe 4. And that's because we do our homework. So S2, any suggestions you can make as far as border deportations, child sex trafficking, all the stuff we discussed with Doc Pete as far as homework.
We are in an age, we are back to the age now where we are post 9/11, where if you see something, say something. Look for some of the indicators of child trafficking. For instance, if you happen to see a child of Latin American descent, or at least you can ascertain that in some way, shape, or form, and it happens to be walking around with a 40-ish to 50-ish year old man, and something doesn't look right, just kind of give that a sideways look there. And if you have the ability to look into it more, look into it more. Other indicators are, how does the child look? Are they in clean clothes? Or do they appear to be fed well? Things like that. So those are some of the telltale signs that there's something going on there. So if you see something, say something to somebody, even if it's dropping us a line. If you've got details on stuff like that, drop us a line. We'll get it to Doc Pete. He'll get it to the right people. I feed him a lot of stuff on this stuff. So,
all right, it's great, us to appreciate that. So I want to share something here, just to share my screen briefly with y'all. So this is what a daily sit rep looks like for those of you who haven't seen it. So sit rep, short for situation report. If you go to our Patreon, there's a link down below, and you can sign up for $9.99 a month or $95 a year. You get 2 months for free if you sign up for the year. You get our daily sit rep, and you also get an invite to our Signal chat. S2, Mike Sterling, all the boys are in there dumping massive amounts of intel. We also have other members in there dumping massive amounts of open source intel. A lot of helping back and forth amongst like-minded individuals. But this is what a daily sit rep looks like when you sign up for it. There is a ton of content in them, a ton of links. So when you hear me say I'm only going to play part of a video, if you want to know what that video is, it's in the daily sit rep. If you don't have time to watch everything online with us, you can consume this yourself. We've got partner deals. We've got a section at the end for restricted content. There's none in here tonight. I think last night's or the night before had quite a bit, but that's what goes into a daily sit rep, and that's kind of an average size one. Some of them are longer. None of them are probably shorter, but think of it as we go out, we do the work, we find the patterns of the Mockingbird media, amongst other things, which is a huge red flag, by the way. Then we go searching for the truth, and then we present you guys what we have discovered to be the truth. Again, I think we've made 3 or 4 retractions over 434 episodes. So I'm pretty proud of our team for that, because that's not a bad average. Nobody's perfect. I can live with those kinds of numbers, but essentially save you a ton of time that it takes us to go and gather all of this information. So with that being said, S2, do you have the conflicted question at your disposal?
yes, I do. Hypothetical situation. Imagine a small family consisting of a single mother, her teenage son, and her elderly father, living in a rural area during a prolonged power outage following a severe storm. The region has been hit hard, and emergency services are overwhelmed, leaving the family isolated. On the 3rd day without power, a group of desperate neighbors approaches their home. These neighbors, whom the family vaguely recognizes but doesn't know well, claim they're starving and demand food and water. The family has a modest stockpile, enough to last them a couple weeks if it's rationed carefully. But giving away supplies would significantly reduce their own chances of weathering the crisis. The situation escalates when one of the neighbors, growing agitated, hints at using force if their demands are not met. The mother has a concealed handgun for self-defense, and her son knows where it's kept. The grandfather urges them to share what they can, citing compassion, while the son argues that they need to protect their own survival first. The question is, in a survival scenario where resources are scarce and desperate group demands your supplies, possibly with threats, how do you balance the moral duty to help others with the responsibility to ensure your family's safety and survival? Should you risk your own well-being for strangers? Or is it justifiable to prioritize your loved ones, even if it means using force to protect what's yours?
So we've discussed some mitigation means. In other words, don't put all of your supplies in one location. Hide them around your house. Use a safe if you got a safe that you can hide stuff in or secure stuff in. Don't be afraid to bury stuff in your yard, your backyard, where nobody would see it. But if you have multiple small spots of where, you know, you've stashed your food, water, ammunition, those sort of supplies, let's just say that this group overpowered you. Well, they would only get a fraction of what you actually have. So that would help to mitigate that situation. With regards to the person threatening, it would depend on how valid that threat was and what I knew of the party. But if I felt that it was a valid threat, and especially if they moved towards myself or my family, at that point in time, all bets are off. That's all I'm going to say on a live broadcast. As to your thoughts.
So we keep decoy supplies on hand. For that, it's not specifically for us. You know, however, things get really bad, we could dig into those. But we keep decoy supplies on hand. So if somebody were to come to the door, we could say, this is all we've got. And this is all we've got to give. And just give it to them and say, be on your way. But don't ever come back. That's it.
Yeah. And I like that. I had a buddy of mine who was a truck driver, and every time he went into New York, he'd make sure that he had his fake wallet on him that was full of expired crap. Coupons and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I got one just like it.
Yeah, he did get held up a couple times, and they didn't get his money, didn't get his real wallet. So good stuff. I like the decoy method. So tomorrow night, Jeff O'Donnell will be debuting with his weekly roundup on Survival Dispatch News. Some of you actually in the insider chat on Signal got a chance to see the bumper for a show. It's pretty good. It's really good, actually. And then John Wheaton will be hosting on Sunday evening. I'll be back Monday. John will be taking over every Sunday, Tuesday going forward. So you're stuck with me 4 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it's not because I'm working less hours. It's because there's a whole bunch of things that I have to personally do, meetings that I need to attend, amongst other things, and I just don't have the bandwidth by doing this 7 days a week. So really happy to have John and Jeff O'Donnell step up to the plate. So I've got a 7-minute video, by the way, tonight, and it was sent to us by one of our followers who's a Marine, and I don't have his personal name. He's never given it to me. And even if I had it, I may or may not publish it. So he sent me a link yesterday to this song called the Mega Anthem, and by a country guy, and it's really well done. So I'm going to risk getting our video shut down. If they shut our video down because of this song, we'll have to clip it out to make sure the rest of it's visible for people. But who knows? We'll see. It's pretty much a guarantee. Every single night within 20 minutes ending the podcast, I get a nasty gram from YouTube saying, you use this person's content. But anyway, whatever. So I personally will be back on Monday evening. And between now and then, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
Hoorah.
Oh man,
just making them around.
You and Michael been after them turkeys.
Shoot, yeah. I've been chasing them. Michael's been killing them all over the country.
Speaking of the country, man, I was in there watching the daggone news, and it's unbelievable, unreal what this country has come to. You know what I mean?
You're right about that. It's crazy. It ain't the country I grew up in, I can tell you that.
I know.